In this story, our protagonist is a little boy of a peculiar origin, which I won't spoil for you here. This mysterious origin made his parents unable to understand why he was so powerful. The kid was so strong that he defeated any student in the academy, and because of that everyone wanted to know more about him. But his parents tried to hide the boy's origin at all costs. The story begins with them arriving on a new planet. This place was called Tiendo, and there was a research center of the Union there. They were doing scientific experiments. The chief said it was time to inject the repair hormones. When they went to place the injection on the girl's skin, the needle ended up breaking. The scientists thought that was impossible, and the girl started absorbing the nutrients from the liquid very quickly. They got desperate and asked to activate the guiding soul energy. Her heart began to beat fast again, and her vital signs started to stabilize. She was a girl with white hair, and then she ended up opening her eyes. The scientist pressed a button to release oxygen, and that beautiful girl woke up asking where she was. Meanwhile, at that same moment, the scene shifts to the mother planet called Duolo. There are several planets in the story, guys, and we go to one that had a very tropical climate. A girl was having fun collecting some shellfish on the beach, until she saw a man who had washed ashore. Of course, the girl started screaming, thinking he was a corpse. Then she ran to see how he was doing. She used her healing magic. Maybe the guy was still alive, right? You never know. It seemed like nothing had happened. When she was already losing hope, the man ended up standing up. The girl ran away thinking he was a zombie. From afar, she peeked at that hairy man and even noticed he was quite handsome. She put her hand in front of her face, pretending she didn't want to see the lower parts of the man. But of course, she sneaked a little peek, right? The man was confused, wondering who he was. While all this was happening, at the North Pole of that planet, there was an expedition going on. They were digging in a mysterious mountain area until a scientist found an extremely rare egg. This researcher was called Lian Xiao, and he showed that spirit beast artifact to his friend named Nan Sheng. These two are the parents of our protagonist, guys. Hold on, he'll show up soon. That artifact was worth a lot of money and they could sell it to get married. The girl got a little embarrassed, but now that the expedition was over, they would return to the lab to do more research. The temperatures in that place were extreme, and as soon as they reached the ship, they placed the egg inside an incubator. He felt lucky for having found that thing. Suddenly, the egg started moving, and they imagined it could be a dragon or some mystical creature. A very bright light started to shine. Then we see a little baby arm coming out of the shell. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The entire shell broke apart, and one of the scientists said that egg was around 100,000 years old. The computer analyses were accurate, but it was hard to believe that little baby inside the egg had lived that long. Even after doing many studies in his life, he had never seen anything like it. One of the scientists said that the baby was human. With that, Xiao was in shock and asked the other scientists to redo the test. The girl said everything indicated that the baby really was human, and incredibly, he started eating the shells. The kid was born starving, guys. In disbelief, the man said that this expedition could bring them trouble. After removing the shells, the woman held the baby, but our hero started crying, poor thing. She realized he wanted to eat the shells again, so she asked her boyfriend to bring them so he could eat. As soon as he ate, he stopped crying right away. The girl asked what they should do with that baby, and Xiao simply said to give him the shells and let him eat. Meanwhile, the science organization punished those who conducted fraudulent research. The guy with glasses said they had no way to explain the appearance of a baby inside an egg. Xiao understood the seriousness of the situation and asked Nan Sheng to keep the shells to research and prove everything. The woman agreed. They needed to study the shells to draw a conclusion and present it to the science department. After all, guys, if they simply showed up there with a baby saying he came from an egg, they could lose their research license. The little baby was crying in the cradle and seemed very hungry. However, the scientist and his girlfriend didn't hear the sound, and the two were sleeping separately. Guys, comment if you think that's weird or not. That eggshell started to disintegrate, turning into some kind of smoke or mist, and it went to where our little boy was sleeping. There, he managed to absorb the energy from the shell. Little by little, he started to fall asleep again. And so, they continued their journey. Hours later, when they woke up, Nan Sheng went to check on the baby. However, her boyfriend had arrived earlier and noticed something was wrong. He said all the eggshells had disappeared and the place was empty. She said she wasn't the one who did it, but the scientist trusted his girlfriend. So they decided to check the cameras to see what really happened. The guy needed this expedition to succeed because he was broke, guys, not a penny for the wedding. Now that they no longer had the shells, they couldn't prove the baby's origin. If they showed up there with him saying they found him on the expedition, they would lose their license. With that, Nan Sheng said she would take care of the boy. Since they were going to get married, she decided to adopt the baby as their son. The man agreed, hugged his girlfriend, and said he would also be a father, trusting her to raise the boy well. The other scientists were delighted and said they made a beautiful couple. With that, the expedition leader asked everyone not to spread the news about where the baby came from and promised that if they discovered something about him, he would give all the credit to the team. 3 days later, the team took the baby back to the research lab. The only thing they couldn't identify was the boy's DNA. But other than that, everything was normal. They got married and built a beautiful family. No one said anything about this secret. And so the story begins with our little protagonist, Luan Xuan. A few years passed and we returned to the Union Research Center on Olo, that girl we saw at the beginning of the story. She was sitting on the floor with some books and magazines. The assistant asked if Nana was distracted again, and that girl named Nana looked back, surprised by her colleague. The girl's beauty was so great that the assistant froze and even joked, saying that after working so much with Nana, she was starting to fall in love with her. The girl didn't understand the joke and replied that she was saving herself for the day she met the man of her life. Looks like she didn't get the joke, guys, and thought the assistant was actually in love. Or maybe the assistant really was, who knows. It had been a few years since she was discovered, and now she could get her temporary citizenship. If after 10 years she still posed no threat, she would become a permanent citizen. The girl reflected on that, the fact of becoming a temporary citizen of the Union. The assistant asked if she had recovered her memories, and Nana said she managed to see a distorted image but couldn't remember clearly what it was. The scene shifts to the main planet. Someone was having an interview to get temporary citizenship. Since this person had spent the last few years without causing problems, they were eligible to receive the document. That one was the long-haired man from the beach. The guy was so handsome that the interviewer fell in love with him. His name was Tarzan, and the redhead was happy that he had made it. From now on, she would help him become a star, saying she would be a great agent. In the past few years, she had suffered a lot because he was kind of clueless, and often put her in embarrassing situations. But since he was handsome, she decided to make him a celebrity. All he needed was temporary citizenship. She spent a long time teaching him to be talented so he could become a celebrity, and combining that with his looks, she was sure he would become famous. The girl said that he would definitely captivate everyone. She wanted to create a K-pop style boy band with that guy. Now we finally go to the real protagonist of this story. It took 5 chapters for him to appear, but that's fine. He was walking with his father, who explained that today would be the day to test his spiritual power. Little Loan was excited and told his father he was already on his way there. Xiao said goodbye but was worried. After all, no one could find out that his son was born from an egg. He received a call on his electronic device. It was his wife asking how the boy's spiritual strength tests were going. In fact, the father wasn't worried about whether his son would be strong or not. He just hoped no one would discover that the boy was born from a spiritual egg. The scene goes inside the testing lab. Loan stepped onto a platform to measure his spiritual essence. A warm energy began to surround the boy's body and the energies merged. At that moment, he felt a bit of pain and started to scream. The father, who was outside, got worried and entered the room, realizing that Loan was holding a green energy sphere. They said his spirit was of blue-silver grass. That was a slightly weak attribute, but still a rare one. The scientist was disappointed, saying the boy's spiritual power was too low. But Xiao didn't care about that. When they got home, they tested the blue-silver grass power level, and were surprised. The boy simply had the maximum level of soul power. The couple looked at each other, trying to understand it. Placing his hand on his son's head, the father asked the boy to promise he wouldn't tell anyone about his power level. He was too young to be at the maximum level, so he should pretend he was only at level 3. The boy agreed. Even with a weak element, he still had a rare soul power. Nansheng said that throughout history, only one person ever had blue-silver grass with full strength. That person was the ancient emperor. Xiao asked if his wife was implying that he was a descendant of that emperor. It was to be expected that the son would be unusual. After all, he was born from an egg, right guys? He promised his wife that he would teach the boy cultivation so he could become strong and no one could take their son away. The mother agreed, saying that both of them were the most precious things in her life. Meanwhile, in his room, the boy showed great ease in releasing his cultivation power. At night, he slept peacefully in his little bed, and silver grass energies began to appear around his body, floating above him. A black hole of magic formed in the boy's stomach, and from inside it came a ring that stuck to his finger. Inexplicably, that ring had a magical essence, and the poor boy had no idea what was happening. The next morning, the father became worried when he saw it, and asked where little Luan had gotten the ring. Our protagonist didn't know anything, and after telling his wife, he mentioned that even trying to remove the ring, it wouldn't come off at all. The father also said that some strange energy was preventing him from taking the ring off. Even though it was strange, they decided to just observe for now. 10 minutes passed, and he became scared of his son. He tried to teach cultivation to the boy, but it seemed like he was already on an advanced level. Luan could release 2 spirits at the same time, and besides that, another ring appeared. Innocently, the boy tried to show those energies to his father. Xiao began to wonder if that could be a magical beast growing. The man was already afraid of his own son. Seeing his father's worried expression, the little boy asked what was happening. Trying to hide it, the father said it was nothing serious, and asked if he could retract the blue-silver grasses. When he closed his hand, Luan showed that he could turn off the power easily. The father then asked the boy to do the same with the other hand. For the next 3 days, Xiao kept watching his son to make sure nothing bad would happen. What if the kids suddenly destroyed the whole house, right? You never know. But fortunately, everything went fine, and he was relieved. He even talked to little Luan, asking him to hide that incredible power, and made up a story to disguise the ring, saying it was a family heirloom. And if anyone asked why the ring wouldn't come off, they'd say it was glued on with super glue. I doubt anyone would believe that, They did everything they could to hide the boy's ridiculous talent. Finally, the first day of school arrived and the boy's father gave him an encouraging speech. Nansheng was happy. After all, they worked hard to save money and put him in that school. On the way there, the father told his son to make lots of friends. But honestly, I think he's just going to end up making enemies. I don't know, huh? He also told the boy to lie about his age, saying he was 1 year older, and to explain he missed classes because he was sick. The boy replied that lying wasn't good because his mother said a good boy doesn't do that. But in response, Xiao agreed and said it was true. Lying was bad, but sometimes they had to do it to protect themselves. For those who didn't get it, it was just to disguise why the boy was so strong. Something like, oh, it's because he's older than the other students. But no, right, he was born from an egg. Of course the kid is different. Then the boy agreed with his father, saying it was fine. That was the primary academy of the city of Zuluo. There was a girl at the reception with her father registering. Her name was Ling Tong, and she had one of the most promising powers in the academy. The school employee asked her to place her hand on the device for scanning. They found out that the girl was at level 8 of spiritual power. She was surprised. When the registration was done, her father, who was a soldier, thanked them and left. At that moment, Xiao and his son arrived and saw that the man was a senior colonel. Xiao even gave a respectful salute to the officer. The man returned the greeting, and little Luan thought that was really cool. That soldier looked at the boy and even patted his head, saying hello. Ling even said her father's name because she was surprised by his action. The man found our protagonist's father curious and asked if he was an administrative member of the army, and Xiao said yes. Then the man simply turned and left, making our hero's father find that very suspicious. The man was really worried about his son, guys. He thought all of that was a conspiracy to discover that the child wasn't ordinary. Little Luan was very polite and introduced himself to the receptionist. Meanwhile, Ling was curious because her father had paid attention to that little boy. She overheard that he had level 11 cultivation. The boy said goodbye to his father, and then she called our protagonist and even asked if he was really at level 11 cultivation. But that wasn't a big deal because soon she would surpass him. Luan said he didn't care about that, making the girl turn away, all flustered. However, when she got close to Luan, she saw he was handsome and fell in love. Out of nowhere, she asked if she could pinch his cheeks because he was so cute. Since our boy was innocent, he agreed and she pinched him. She blushed, saying he was really adorable. Putting his hand on his face, Luan said she pinched too hard and concluded that she was a mean girl, and that he didn't like mean girls. Turning her face away, Ling said she didn't like spoiled boys like him either. And then our protagonist was completely disrespected, guys. But I'll tell you right now, the humiliation he's going to make that girl go through will pay for all of this. That year, there were over 100 new students, and they were divided into 6 classes. Ling was placed in the offensive class, and our hero was placed in control class 2. When he got home, his parents asked how the class went. The big boy asked if, when someone wanted to pinch his cheek, he could say no. Xiao said yes, that he could refuse if he wanted to. The poor kid was really innocent, everyone. The next day, when he returned to class, they would have their first combat training. Since they were beginners, the combat training would be pretty light. And of course, Ling, that jealous girl, would want to fight our hero sooner or later. She was mad because he said he didn't like her. As soon as the signal was given, she started running really fast. The boy went at a slower pace, and soon she caught up with him. As she passed him, the girl said he was too slow. He knew he was slow and replied that he would get faster soon. Trying to tease him, Ling said she was ahead and would win the race. Since Luan was a bit naive, he asked if that was a competition, which made her irritated. She got angry because he wasn't competitive and even said that wasn't how a man should act. But he replied that he didn't care about beating a girl, which made her even angrier. That boy was kinda sexist, since he didn't even see her as an opponent. And of course, Ling got all sulky. The teachers commented that Luan was very slow even though he was level 11. But another teacher said he was slow but kept a steady pace. When the race ended, the teachers noticed he was arguing with the girl. She challenged him to a duel, and politely he said he wouldn't accept since good boys don't fight girls. That's what his mother had taught him. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really liking this protagonist. The kid is awesome. I don't know if you noticed, but he had already rejected Ling 3 or 4 times, and all mad, she said she wouldn't accept being intimidated by him. The other students started cheering, saying there was a fight going on. Trying a judo move, she grabbed his clothes and said she wanted to throw him to the ground. He didn't do anything because his mother taught him never to hit women. The girl even used her cultivation power to try to throw him down. Since he was inexperienced in fighting, she thought it would be easy, but suddenly she realized it was like trying to push a mountain. I'm telling you, this kid is strong. Since his cultivation power was huge, she lost balance and fell to the ground. The teacher asked what happened and if she had tried to make a judo throw. Pointing at the girl, Luan said she started the fight and she was unconscious. Guys, tell me if you think it's right for a boy to try to defend himself from a girl. Back in my school days, it wasn't like that. If you messed around, you got hit. The teacher quickly shouted for them to take Ling to the infirmary. Luckily, the girl only had a few minor injuries, but the humiliation she suffered was huge and that was irreversible. Later, she told everything to her father, and the colonel said it was because that boy had level 11 cultivation and maybe that influenced the fight. All nervous, Ling said she would reach level 11 and defeat him. 6 months passed and it was time for the final test of the year. The boy was really happy because his father had promised a vacation trip if he passed and got good grades. During all that time he hadn't talked to Ling. She was excited because she might get to fight him and revealed that both classes would participate together in the combat, but he said that was unfair since most of the class hadn't even reached level 11. With a little laugh, Ling said she had managed to reach that level. Since the academy wanted to teach the boys to be gentlemen, they would let the girls choose their opponents, and that's why she would choose him. She ran off humming happily because she would get to fight him. Of course our boy got worried since he didn't want to fight a girl. In the afternoon the time for the combat test arrived and the girl said she had chosen Luen as her opponent. The teacher wished them both good luck and some girls nearby started cheering for our hero. Then they stood face to face. She thought that after training for 6 months she could surpass him. When the fight started she used the celestial dragon soul spirit. Dragon claws appeared on her hands and she activated her spirit. In response our hero used silver energy. He was giving it his all, and as he stretched his hand created a protective shield. This vortex shield was of the water element. Wearing celestial armor, Ling said that little shield wouldn't stop her. All confident, she said she would send him flying. He held the shield firmly in his hands. And when we see her all arrogant, we can already guess what's gonna happen, right guys? A drop of water ended up touching the girl's shield, making her armor dissolve. With that, she hit the shield hard and flew to the ground. The teacher noticed the girl's ability had been nullified, and even our hero didn't understand what had happened. She had lost to Luan again. I don't know if you've been counting, but by my count that's like 5 humiliations already. In the afternoon he was home practicing cultivation. His mother had told him he should be friends with the water element, but he didn't understand what that meant. On the intercom camera, Ling appeared asking him to open the door immediately. The boy asked how she knew where he lived. The little girl said her father asked the teachers and that's how they found out. Luan opened the door and there was the girl's father. The colonel apologized for the unexpected visit, but said he had heard about the fight that happened in the morning. Luan didn't even suspect that guy could be dangerous, so he let him in. All arrogant and annoying, the girl started saying that her house was much bigger than Luan's. The colonel said his daughter told him her ability was nullified and asked the boy to show what he had done. He replied that he only used the water element to block the attack. To show the colonel, they went to the training room. The man asked both of them to reproduce the fight. Then Luan activated his vortex barrier, while she used her celestial body. Just like in the morning, she charged at the boy, and her father watched everything carefully. When a small spark of energy touched the barrier, it dissipated. He realized his daughter's cultivation energy was nullified, and she ended up being thrown away. But the father managed to catch her at the last moment, and commented that it didn't seem to have been caused by a spiritual ability. Frustrated, Ling asked what could have caused that. Taking a step forward, the colonel asked Luan to show his soul spirit again. The boy manifested his power, and within the silver-blue grass there were some rune markings. He touched the plant, and at that moment it emitted a very bright light, startling the man. By instinct he activated his cultivation power. The boy felt the man's energy coming toward him. Then the silver-blue grass intertwined around his hand, and next he summoned a shining blue shield. But the colonel's cultivation power was much stronger. He ended up breaking the shield and threw the boy away. The man invaded our hero's house and even hit him. Of course it was by accident, but the boy ended up falling to the floor all bruised. The man didn't understand what had just happened, and the little girl got worried, calling for her father. They noticed that Luan was unconscious. The energies synchronized and created a new element, but soon after they exploded and made something strange appear like a black hole. That's what I understood, guys, because there hasn't been any explanation yet. Later on they might explain it differently. And if you're enjoying this story, comment down below. Silver cultivation. Moments later the boy woke up with his mother calling his name. He got up and told his mother that he was really hungry. She hugged Luan tightly, saying she was very worried about him. And with the most innocent face, the colonel said he was happy the boy was fine. They went outside, and with a salute, he apologized for entering the parents' house without them being there. Of course Sho got irritated, but he wouldn't yell at a military colonel, right? The man's not crazy. The blonde man made an excuse, saying he released his power by instinct because he felt he would be suppressed by Luan. He even imagined the boy's spirit could be an altered spirit or an ancient dragon ability. Of course Sho wanted to hide his son's identity and kept saying he only had the essence of silver blue grass. And besides, if the officer wanted to visit his house, he should ask for permission first. Again, the colonel apologized and Luan's father went back inside. That army officer knew very well that the boy wasn't ordinary. Meanwhile, our protagonist was there complaining he was hungry and even eating plaster off the wall. So they ended up making several dishes for the kid to fill his stomach. But no matter how many bowls of noodles they brought, the boy still didn't feel full and kept complaining he was hungry. His parents got scared, and the father asked his wife to prepare a really nice snack. She went straight to the kitchen, and after eating 8 servings in a row, he was still hungry. To distract the boy and stop him from eating all the food in the house, they took him to the training room. They wanted to see him use that ice shield again, and using a device decided to watch the recordings. Not even Luan remembered using such a cool move like that. He asked what had happened and if he now also had the ice element. He released his cultivation energy through his hands. trying to replicate that magic, and he actually managed to create ice fragments. His father asked him to try wrapping the grass back around his arm like he had done before, and without much effort he did it instantly. He began to see blue dots rising in the sky, and his mother said it must be water elements in the air. Then he stretched his arm upward and froze that water, forming a huge block of ice. That was advanced cultivation technique, and he was doing it like it was a game. I'm telling you guys, this kid is amazing, and you haven't seen anything yet. Even his parents were surprised and said they would test this new spiritual power. Remember that woman named Nana, who appeared at the beginning? Well, keep watching because they have a strong connection. And if you like it, I can make a series from this story because there are many chapters. Seriously guys, it's enough for like a 20-hour video. I just need you to leave lots of comments so YouTube recommends our video. So comment down below part 2. After putting a helmet on his head, they saw his score was 62. It was no surprise he could control the water element, because that was a pretty high score for a kid. And of course he was happy, thinking he would get good grades on the test and earn a vacation. His father told him to relax because they would travel for sure. And with that, Luan started jumping with joy. Of course Xiao was worried about these weird things with his son, but he had to accept that this boy wasn't ordinary. The next day the summer beasts were about to begin, and he got the best result in every subject. The girl called out to him, "Oh my god, what does this girl want now?" Ling was worried because of her father's attack. She even apologized, saying her father didn't do it on purpose. Luan said it was alright and said goodbye. Actually, our hero didn't really like that girl, because she only went to him to annoy him. But she was sad and even wondered why he was so cool and why he didn't like her. Could it be because you've been bothering the boy since the day you met him? I don't know, maybe that's it, huh? So they boarded a spaceship to take a vacation on another planet. And as a good nerdy boy, he was amazed by the spaceship, saying he wanted to be a pilot. From up there you could see the whole city. That was the Intergalactic Federation spaceship. Xiao told his son that the trip would last 7 days and that he might get bored, but Luan replied that he loved space and wouldn't get bored at all. He already started running through the halls, singing Rolling Around, and so the ship took off toward the other planet. 2 hours later, he was already bored and asked what there was to do. His father said the trip had barely started and suggested he practice cultivation meditation, and that's exactly what he did. In just a few moments he was already in an astral world. There he could even perform cultivation spells. Moments later he woke up and his mother said he had been meditating for 6 straight hours. He explained that he saw many silver lights, and his mother was surprised, as he had the ability to see space elements. That was a very important ability for intergalactic pilots, and he said that was one more reason for him to become a pilot. Something caught Luan's attention since his father was staring at the television. He was watching news about the planet Olo, and the broadcast was announcing the debut of a new talent. The news caught everyone's attention and they stared at the screen. The talent agency was announcing the signing of a new star named Tarzan. They had invested a lot in this new talent and the boy got curious. The agency's host appeared to introduce the new star, and the girls were dying of curiosity with all that mystery. The man said Tarzan would represent the entire Xingtang media group. They were going to release the first song for free to everyone, which drove the crowd crazy. Nansheng was surprised because they had never released free music before, and Xiao said it was probably just a publicity stunt. Luan's mother said she didn't like those male idols much because they only seemed kind but were actually bad people. Tarzan had a protective barrier so no one could see his face, and the girls were enchanted, saying he looked tall and strong. The redhead who had met him at the beach at the beginning of the story was beside him, and they said she could press the button on the device to reveal his face. After she pressed the button, the holographic armor began to fade, and the women started screaming like crazy. His face was revealed to everyone, leaving them stunned. The guy was so handsome that people watching said it was the most amazing sight ever. The women were drooling, screaming in love. Some even said they were already his #1 fans, and others commented that Tarzan's voice was very attractive. It was a bunch of crazy and desperate women. Our hero's father couldn't believe there were so many women like that in the world, and when he looked to the side, surprisingly his wife was also smitten. He told her to calm down a little, since she had just said she didn't like male celebrities, and she replied that she never said that. The little boy corrected his mother, saying she had just said it less than a minute ago. Then Nansheng tried to play it off, but still she said that young man was very attractive. Now I can only imagine if the father had said something like that about a woman. She'd go crazy. Even our protagonist didn't understand why his mother was acting like that, and she started shouting in the ship, saying she had just become that idol's #1 fan. After landing safely on the new planet, they went to the city of Tiando. They got a room at a hotel and then went straight to the Galactic Immigration Museum. At the museum, our protagonist learned a little more about his silver blue grass magic. A woman explained that this magic was used to do many things, and he was amazed because he had never heard of it before. But something caught the little boy's attention. He saw a beautiful woman observing those magics, and it was Nana. Her assistant asked what was wrong with that silver blue grass, and when he got there, our protagonist told the woman that his magic was also silver blue grass. The assistant kept saying the little boy was very cute and asked his name. Our hero introduced himself as Luan Xuan, but something drew Nana in and she felt something strange in her head. The assistant, enchanted, asked Nana if the little boy wasn't really cute, but she noticed her lady was feeling unwell. She crouched down, feeling a terrible headache, and then we realized she really had a connection with the boy. But he ended up holding her hair, saying that if it touched the floor, it would get dirty. This kid here is the last romantic on Earth. After lifting her hair, he touched her cheek, saying it was soft and silky. At that moment, they had a strong connection. Very intense. She ended up taking off her mask, and our hero's parents found that a bit strange. Switching to attack mode, Lewin said she was very beautiful, and the girl smiled, saying he was very cute too. Don't even bother shipping these two guys because she's an adult and he's just a child. While she was leaving, he kept looking back. The assistant commented that she didn't know Nana liked children, but when she saw Lewin, Nana said she felt something strange, like a memory. She couldn't explain it well, but it was as if she already knew him. The assistant said that was impossible because he was a child from another planet, and if they really met before, that boy must be thousands of years old. But the assistant apologized for saying that, and something makes us understand that this girl who suffered experiments really was thousands of years old but ended up losing her memory. After a tour of the immigration museum, they returned to the hotel. When they got there, the boy immediately began practicing water cultivation and testing by turning some darts into ice. Then, he created a big spear. He explained to his mother that now he could dissolve the barrier and create ice. Not even she, an experienced researcher, could believe it. It seemed their son was becoming a genius and no one else was capable of teaching him. But Xiao thought it was better to let things go naturally and find a private teacher for the boy. However, it would be difficult to hire this teacher. His mother said it would be expensive, and they weren't doing well financially since both of them worked regular jobs, guys. But Xiao had a solution, an expedition that would pay very well. Nan Sheng asked how long he would be away, and he replied it would be from 3 to 6 months. It would take a long time, and he would only accept the job if she agreed too. Meanwhile, Nana was thoughtful at her home. It was as if seeing that boy awakened some kind of emotional memory in her. It seemed she had strong connections with Lewin, and kept imagining hugging him. This one's a bit crazy. With her eyes closed, she could somehow walk through the world and even wondered what kind of power she had. At the same time, she tried to understand who she really was because she could feel where that child was. The scene shifts back to our protagonist, and his father says he only has one more day of vacation. The most important thing he got from this vacation was a figurine of a character he liked. All excited, the little boy asked his mother if she thought he would ever have his own spiritual armor. She said it wouldn't be easy, but he could if he trained hard. She also said he would need to become a high-level spirit master, and that made the boy curious. Patting his head, his mother said he had to finish his studies at the academy first and only then think about those things. All thrilled, Lewin said that when he grew up, he would be a master of spiritual armor. His father asked if he didn't want to be a spaceship pilot, and he replied that he would be both pilot and master. Laughing, his father agreed and told them to go to the mall for some last shopping. At a store, Xiao said he was going to buy a gift for his wife and asked if she agreed to let him go on that expedition. She said no, but since they were short on money, she ended up agreeing with one condition: he had to come back alive. The man agreed, saying he would return safe and sound. But when she turned to look for their son, she realized he had disappeared. They started shouting Lewin's name through the mall. The boy had gone into a figurine shop and was amazed by a limited edition of the Silver Dragon Knight. The saleswoman appeared and asked if he would like to buy the figurine. The smart boy asked if there was any chance she could give him a discount. The saleswoman said no because it was a very rare piece. A bit sad, he said he'd come back after saving money, but there was a problem: the figurine sold quickly, so there might not be any left. Of course he got discouraged since he wouldn't have enough money. At that moment, Nana appeared, saying she would buy the figurine for him. The boy looked at that beautiful woman, amazed, and asked if she would really give it as a gift. She came closer and touched Lewin's face. She said that if he really wanted the figurine, she would buy it for him. All shy, he said he couldn't accept it because his mother told him never to take gifts from strangers. But Nana replied that she wasn't a stranger because she had already touched his face before. That made perfect sense to the boy, and he ended up accepting. She also said she would talk to his parents first to make sure everything was fine. He got all excited and even said she could touch his cheeks again. The only person who couldn't touch his cheeks was Ling. Think of an annoying girl, but I guarantee she's gonna get nice later, guys. So keep following. There was something about him that caught Nana's attention. The saleswoman commented that the boy's smile was charming and made others feel happy. That bothered Nana, who turned to her with a frightening look. The saleswoman got terrified, trembling all over, and Nana still told her not to act like she knew what was going on. At that moment, Xiao found his son and asked what was happening. The silver-haired girl said a hello, and the boy explained that she was buying a present for him. The masked woman replied that she really liked the child and wanted to give the figurine as a gift, but Xiao said he couldn't accept it, so he would pay for the figurine himself. The boy started jumping with joy, held Nana's hands, and thanked her, saying she was very kind. Once again, she felt a strange sensation when touching him. The boy said goodbye, and she kept watching from afar. The girl had lost her memory and didn't know why, but it felt like she knew the boy and could even see a golden light around him. The The poor thing stood from a distance trying to understand the reason for that feeling, but one thing she knew: she couldn't let him escape. Xiao commented to his wife that our protagonist had grown up, and Nana went up to them saying she would like to say something. She introduced herself and said she really liked meeting Luan and would love to visit him again. That made the boy's parents a little uneasy. She said she would like to visit the little boy whenever she had time. A bit awkwardly, Xiao said they lived on another planet and were just there on vacation. But that wasn't a problem because she could travel to another planet just to see the boy, and of course the father got suspicious. Then she realized that was a bit embarrassing and apologized. She didn't know why, but as soon as she met Luan, she felt a strong connection with him. The man told Miss Nana to wait a moment. The girl simply offered to be his teacher and said she was a spiritual master. The father asked what her soul spirit was, and the girl replied that she mastered an ancient style of martial arts. Besides that, her soul spirit was the type that controlled water elements. It was a huge coincidence. Xiao thought it was too much of a coincidence to have met this woman who claimed to be a teacher. But he couldn't trust her so easily and asked what she worked with. She replied that she was a teacher at the Institute of Technology and even asked him to hand over the communication device to show her identity. Those devices were very precise and didn't lie about people. He ended up giving her the device so she could input her data. Then he saw that Nana was 25 years old and a teacher at the Combat Training Academy. At that moment he realized she was telling the truth, but he thought he wouldn't have enough money to pay for a teacher of that level. Only she didn't want money. She wanted to teach the boy for free. And of course that surprised the parents because nothing comes for free, right? The girl said it really seemed strange but guaranteed she had no bad intentions. She even said she would prove she had enough skill to be a great master. At that moment she started releasing her cultivation power and the shopping mall's water fountain began to move. She created a water tornado and the people walking around started screaming, saying that it was amazing. Within seconds she formed a water dragon. Nansheng commented that this ability was truly impressive and that not just anyone had the power to do that. The little boy was fascinated, saying those abilities were really cool. Xiao wondered what the cultivation level of that woman was. The boy's mother asked if she was one of the titled ones of Oluo. She thought for a bit and said she believed that she was one of those titled ones. And of course the parents of our hero were astonished. They didn't expect to meet a master of that level. With that, they ended up agreeing to accept this woman as Luan's teacher. Then Nansheng asked if that woman would follow them. The hero's father said he thought so, but there was no room for her to go with them on the ship. Luan got all excited, asking his parents if that woman was really going to be his master, and Xiao asked if he liked Nana. With a cute smile, the boy said yes. That way they went to the place where the ship was about to depart. They needed to board quickly because the ship was already taking off for another planet. The boy kept looking around, searching for Nana. He even asked his father if she wasn't going with them, and Xiao said he didn't really know. It all depended on destiny. Spaceship number 7703 took off and headed toward planet Oluo. Nana's assistant went to her office and upon arriving there noticed the girl wasn't in the room. It was strange because she never left without saying anything. She noticed that Nana's device was turned off, but there was a note on the desk. Nana had written that she was leaving for a while and that no one should look for her because she would return when she finished what she needed to do. Or maybe she wouldn't come back to that planet and would stay there instead. Meanwhile, the little boy was anxious and worried about Nana. To pass the time, he decided to meditate a bit. He was so talented that in just a few moments he was already able to enter astral mode and heard a voice coming from a small purple light. From there, Nana appeared and he got all worried, asking if she wasn't going to travel to the other planet with them. The girl said she would indeed keep her promise and teach him everything. Wait a second, miss, then how did you end up here? What is this place? Nana explained that this place was Luan's spiritual consciousness. At that exact moment she was on the upper floor of the ship and could only meet him through this power. He asked if from now on he could call her Miss Nana and she said yes, asking what technique he would like to learn. He thought for a bit but couldn't remember any, so he ended up thinking about Ling to decide. Then he asked if by any chance Nana knew fighting techniques. She said yes, but he thought fighting was kind of bad. The master replied that if it was for a good reason, fighting was something noble like protecting the weak. She gave the example of some bandits trying to intimidate his mother and asked if he wouldn't want to use his fighting techniques to protect her. In other words, if he used his cultivation techniques to do good, it wouldn't be a problem because it would be noble to protect the people he loved. She said that in a slightly sad way and he asked if she was okay. The girl replied that just some old memories came to mind and changed the subject, asking if he wanted to learn to fight. Touching his face, the boy said he didn't like hitting others and would rather learn techniques to avoid combat. If it were me, I would already learn to throw a camera and destroy everyone who's evil. But this boy here is kind, folks. Unlike us, she explained that she would teach him a very useful technique in combat, and so they trained throughout the trip back to the planet. After the 6-day holiday, Xiao's family ended up returning to planet Tianluo. As they left the airport, the boy looked around. I don't even know if it's an airport, guys. Airport is for planes, right? Spaceport. Nana had told him to stay calm because she herself would come find him. So he stopped feeling anxious and went straight home with his parents. When he got there, he ran to his room to practice meditation, hoping to meet her again. And it worked. He met her in his subconscious and ran straight to give her a hug. She had promised that when they met in person she would give him a few kisses, and that's why he was so excited. He even made that mischievous face saying he couldn't wait to meet her in person. The brat managed to get the prettiest girl in the story, guys. This time they were going to practice a kind of tag game. If he managed to touch her, he would win the battle. But the girl dodged, jumping back and smiling, said that wasn't going to work again, and so he spent the whole night training. Later we saw that she didn't have a specific place to stay and was even wandering the streets. The next morning the big boy said his power had increased again. Nan Sheng went to check and saw that her son had reached level 12. Someone knocked on the door, and when they went to answer it was Nana herself, saying she came to bring the boy his kisses. That's because he had won the tag competition the day before and ran up to hug the girl. That kid is clever, guys. When she touched Luin, she ended up having a strange sensation. It was as if he was very familiar to her. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to theorize. He's probably the reincarnation of the Dragon Emperor, and she must have some kind of connection with him. But I didn't get any spoilers, guys. This is just my own theory. If you're imagining something else, some other theory, you can comment down below. The hero's parents asked if she really came just to train him, and she said yes. Then they invited the girl to come in. Next they ended up making lunch for everyone, and the little boy went straight for the food. Nan Sheng asked Nana if it was normal for Luin to eat that much, and the girl said yes. Since he was training cultivation, he needed to absorb a lot of spiritual energy. However, the food they could offer him didn't have much energy, and the mother said it was because they didn't have enough money. Xiao even mentioned that only high-class schools offered food rich in spiritual energy to their students. With a serious look, she said she understood. Worried, the boy's father asked if she was really going to teach him cultivation. Little did Xiao know that this girl had already been teaching cultivation in Luin's subconscious for a few days. He felt guilty, thinking it would be a waste for her to work for free giving lessons to him. But the girl got serious and said money wasn't a problem. The only thing she wanted was a place to sleep. The couple looked at each other and agreed to let her live with them. There goes our protagonist bringing a cutie into the house. This little guy is a player. That way Nana ended up moving into the guest room. Nan Sheng of course was suspicious of Nana and asked if she could watch the lessons. After Nana said yes, Nan Sheng ended up closing the door. Later, before the class started, she told her son that if he learned anything strange, he should tell his mom immediately. The boy said it was fine and asked if his mom wanted to play tag. If she managed to catch him, he would let her kiss him. Then the mother started running to catch him, saying she was going to kiss his cheek 100,000 times. But the boy manages to dodge, and his mother is surprised since he really seemed to be playing for real. With a serious look, she says that now it's for real. But again, the boy manages to dodge her attacks, and laughing, he says that she lost, and now it's his turn to give the kisses. The mother realizes that these dodging techniques weren't normal and understands that this was what he was learning from Nana. After the training, he told his mother everything, explaining what he had learned, and noticed that the woman's level was completely beyond their understanding. She had to be very strong to be able to teach him cultivation at that level, and next there would be another class. Nansheng welcomes Nana, and the teacher says that the boy's mother could also join the class. They would do something very important, establish a cultivation base and gain magical resistances. She would release a bit of soul energy over the boy for him to try to resist. That pressure was dangerous, making the boy's mother nervous. But Nana told the mother to stay calm because she would control everything. And she even invited Nansheng to join, and she stayed in the back doing cultivation. Meanwhile, Nana started releasing her energy. The mother created a kind of protective barrier to try to resist, and our dear hero did the same. Now he needed to feel the power of the soul, he said to his master. Closing his eyes, he began to intertwine his arm with the silver-green grass. That energy needed to form a kind of protective shield to resist the pressure. His barrier was flexible, and he managed to slowly absorb the energy of water. That was a very good strategy, he said to Nana. But as time passed, he began to feel intense fatigue. Nansheng, who was in the back, began to sweat cold and told Nana that she couldn't take it anymore. And the master said it was because he wasn't trying hard enough, but Luin's mother was just an office worker. She wasn't a skilled cultivator. The little boy was already about to give up, saying he couldn't take it anymore because the pressure was intense. But when he looked at the beautiful face of dear Nana, he felt more motivated and said she could release the energy again because he would continue the training. A very strong light began to shine from his chest, and now he used the silver-green grasses on the other arm. She noticed that 2 strands of blue grass were formed. It was as if those 2 energies were merging, and she realized that this could be very dangerous. Charging power in her hand, she ended up touching our hero's body. That was because that magic fusion could be dangerous. Nansheng screamed in concern for her son, and the boy began to scream in pain. Nana said that the soul spirits were creating a strange energy. The second energy source in his body was awakening, and that's why it was fighting against the first wave of energy. That would be very dangerous, and that's why she was thinking of an alternative. Something that could be done was to force harmony between the two, and that's exactly what Nana tried to do, creating a kind of synchronization with the dual energies. The boy had been born with 2 manifestations, and at that moment he ended up fainting. There were 2 different energy waves in his body, and the poor boy was lying down trying to recover. Nana explained that she didn't know exactly why, but she thought it was precisely these energy waves that had drawn her to him. However, if the boy got too excited and the energies went out of control, it could be very dangerous. She explained to the parents that she would train the boy to combine these energies. Chao asked if little Luan's life was in danger, and she said that for now he wasn't at risk of dying because of it. However, she should try to make these energies flow through his meridians. She went to the boy's room, placed her hands on his back, and performed a kind of cultivation, trying to harmonize those energies. However, it was being a bit difficult. Every time she touched the boy, she felt a familiar connection. However, she couldn't remember anything. At that moment, she noticed the ring on her finger was shining. The ring on the boy's finger also began to shine, and she felt an energy flowing through her body. That was Luan's ring, and she tried to touch it, remembering that this ring used to be hers. The ring that was once on the boy's finger ended up loosening and flying toward her. With that, she managed to absorb that energy. Momentarily, she disappeared and teleported to the top of the city. Whispering softly, the girl said that now she remembered. She had remembered the name of that ring and began to materialize it. When the spear was formed, she said it was called Holy Heaven Dividing Spear. With a serious look, she made a slash in the sky. On the news, they started broadcasting reports about that bright cut. They said that this abnormal energy wave appeared over the city, and they were already sending some probes for research. Nana ended up returning to Luan's room, and the ring returned to its rightful place, which was on the boy's finger. 3 days had passed, and he had been sleeping all that time. When he woke up, he started yelling to his mother that he was really hungry. The boy's mother made a giant plate of food, and he started eating really fast. At that moment, Nana also woke up and went to the kitchen. She had brought meat, which was the tendon of a spiritual beast, so he could recover his energy. But in an expensive restaurant in the area, the head chef was complaining, saying that the meat of the spiritual beast had been stolen. Could this Nana be some kind of bandit, guys? At least, that's what it seemed like. In that day's training, she was going to teach him to properly control his energies inside his body. His goal was to make them flow in harmony without fighting each other. After a long meditation training, he began to practice cultivation. The drops of water turned into small fragments of ice, and the only thing he thought about was that he really liked being next to that girl. The kid is not dumb, no. When summer vacation ended, he returned to the academy, and who was waiting for him was none other than Ling. For the 20th time, he ended up brushing the girl off, saying he didn't want to talk to her. And of course, that left her very annoyed. The teacher said she would hold a battle to see if they weren't out of practice since they had spent a few weeks on vacation. At that moment, he realized that Ling was calling him to arrange the fight. The teacher began to explain the rules. Each class would send one student at a time. Those who kept winning would continue in the battles, and the last one remaining would be the winning team. The class of this glasses-wearing teacher said they would choose Luan as the first fighter, and Luan's teacher picked him as her first choice. The boy became a little tense, and the teacher imagined it would be complicated to have him fight Ling, especially since the girl's father was an influential colonel. The fight between the two was about to begin, and the fan used his bear strength ability. Luan's teacher became a little tense because that technique was powerful. The teacher of the first class commented that the fan would defeat Luan without much difficulty. The boy charged at our hero, and he used his dodging techniques to avoid the bear claws. The dodge worked successfully, and he activated a power in his hands, freezing the ground. After touching, the boy lost his balance and fell hard to the ground. To win the fight, he threatened the boy with an ice spear, saying it was for him to surrender since he had lost. I think this story has the most OP child protagonist ever, guys. The kid is tough. The teachers wondered how he managed to win this fight with just one move. The boy was a sore loser and kept saying that Luan had cheated. His classmate Ling said that Luan didn't cheat. He was skilled, that's why he won. At that moment, he began to value the techniques taught by Nana even more. Next, his opponent would be Ling Tong. She didn't wait long and activated her celestial armor, charging at our hero. He stayed alert, knowing her techniques were dangerous, and so he made the ice protective shield. But she ended up deactivating the celestial armor and blocked the shield with her fists. The boy also managed to dodge her attack and right after prepared ice darts. With incredible speed, she appeared behind him and blocked the darts with her elbow. Showing great flexibility, she prepared to deliver a back kick. The teacher shouted for her to stop, saying that move would be dangerous, but our hero managed to block it, and as a result, he was thrown into the air. Now there was nowhere to run since he was in the air. Shouting victory, she said there would be no way for him to dodge the next attack. Very calmly, he waited until the last moment and wrapped his arms with silver bluegrass. With a mischievous smile, she said the attack wouldn't work since he had already tried before. Their hands were about to touch and the teachers were tense. Surprisingly, he managed to grab the girl's fist, leaving her shocked. Not even the teachers and students watching could believe it. He had defeated her again in a humiliating way. He squeezed her arm firmly and the teacher told him to let go. Then another teacher came over asking if the girl was okay, and some students commented that the boy was very strong, making it strange that she had lost like that. No matter how much Ling trained, she would still be one step behind him. A group of students said that Ling had lost on purpose because she was in love with Luan. Upon hearing this, the girl began to cry and shouted loudly that it wasn't true. Pushing Luan, she said she didn't like him and even hated him. Immediately afterwards, she ran away crying. No matter how much stronger she became, she was still a step behind him, and that's why she hated him. After losing the battle, she immediately called her father and told him everything that happened. Even after deactivating her celestial armor, he had managed to block it. The man told his daughter not to cry and said that when they got home he would talk to her properly. An employee welcomed the regiment commander, and with a serious look he said the meeting would begin. The reason for this mission was extremely important, and the Ferocious Dragon Special Forces team would be in command this time. The target was a very brutal and cruel organization which had anti-surveillance abilities, and they would need to stop them to avoid chaos among the population. In the blink of an eye, our hero had evolved a lot and reached level 13. 3 months had already passed, and his mother said he had grown a lot. Miss Nana was going to take him to play after he finished the training. The boy's mother even gives him a little tap on the head, saying that he gets very excited when talking about games. I know very well what game this girl wants to play with our hero, but before going to the amusement park, they needed to complete a training. He had already mastered the basics, and now they would focus on concentrating the increase of his spiritual level. For that, he would have to practice some hand-to-hand combat techniques. The boy gets very excited because she said she would teach him the golden dragon that shocks the sky technique. They go to Lewin's consciousness, and there she manages to activate her energy inside his body. This energy would flow in reverse, so he would have to try to master it. By concentrating, he manages to feel Nana's energy flowing through his body and comments that he can't breathe properly, but his cultivation had been enhanced. The silver-green grass became more rigid, and she tells him to use the dragon that shocks the sky technique. He does exactly that, releasing an intense dragon light. The light was so strong that it destroyed parts of the room. Surprised, the boy says that the technique is very strong but drains part of his soul. For that reason, she transfers soul energy so that he can recover. When he fuses the two energies he possesses to generate attacks, it will cause even more damage. Moreover, the golden dragon technique would help energize the nutrients in his meridians. He asks, "What are these nutrients inside my body?" She wasn't sure, but just felt that it would be appropriate. Since it was a perfect technique for him, the boy should become proficient in it. He says it's okay and starts releasing several bursts of golden dragon. The next day, his mother ended up taking him for a walk instead of Nana. This time, the destination was the newly opened inflatable castle in the mall. The scene shifts to the 128-floor horizontal building, and a mysterious character says on his electronic device that he has arrived at the location. In his earpiece, the person tells him to start the mission and, laughing, says he will begin the games. As promised, the boy is taken to an amusement park inside the building with inflatable rides. He was very happy, jumping, and told his mother to watch him play. Nan Sheng smiled at her son. Meanwhile, the bandit had managed to enter the New Horizon building and, using his cultivation, went to the computers and began stealing data. In the earpiece, the guy's team asks if it will take long, and in a few moments he manages to unlock the security lock. He accessed the central data bank. However, a message appeared saying access would be denied, and he realized he had fallen into an ambush. An attack was coming at him, so he managed to dodge at the last moment, and there was Shen Lingling's father. The colonel told the bandit to surrender. Unexpectedly, the guy extends his arms, saying he would surrender willingly. Of course, the colonel found that very strange. Next, the bandit asked the officer's name. The colonel said he would not give the name, as he knew this guy was very evil. Laughing, the bandit said the Ferocious Dragon Special Forces weren't so interesting, and ended up revealing that he knew the man was called Shen and had a daughter named Ling. With an evil face, he threatened the colonel's family, and at that moment the energy in the entire building went out. Laughing, the criminal said his companions had reached the commander's device. Someone gave a greeting and called themselves the King of Darkness of the Eternal City of Sinners. It was exactly the organization the police team was trying to fight. On the device, he told the colonel that there were about 12,000 people in the building, and that they were being threatened with their lives as the building had bombs. For these bombs not to be triggered, the colonel would need to release the criminal. Smiling, Jing said that if they didn't release him, the building would collapse. In other words, everyone there would be screwed. The colonel became nervous, punched Jing, and ordered the other officers to release the criminal. The top priority was to save the people inside the building, and some security guards turned on flashlights, telling the population to stay calm, as it was just a power outage. Nan Sheng holds our dear Lan and tells him to stay calm. A red light appears shining in the background of the corridor, and the police officer holding the flashlight is hit by a shot. Sheng realizes it was an attack by criminals, who appear in groups using jetpacks. Threatening civilians, they told everyone to stand still and not move. Holding her son, she begins thinking of a way to get out of there alive with him. Unexpectedly, the criminals start firing several shots. She didn't know how many criminals were in the building, but she needed to escape with her son, so she begins running toward the emergency exit. The door was very close, and as she was almost there, it began to crack, and inside it, where the stairs were, an explosion occurred. What emerged was a giant robot. Nan Sheng realizes it was a battle droid. Outside, the population thought it was fireworks inside the building. The commander in the security room notices that some bombs had been triggered. The criminals didn't keep their deal, and Jing went straight to a command center to try to steal the data. His team asked if he would take long, and he said he was almost done. The so-called King of Eternal Darkness ordered his subordinates out of the building, and they appeared with a giant spaceship. It slowly landed beside the building, and because of the thrusters, the building began to break apart. Inside, the mother and her son were almost hit by the debris. Seeing that her son would be hit, she put herself in front, and the boy saw that his mother was hit full force. To make matters worse, the battle droid was behind her. Nansheng shouts for her son to run, and the boy becomes thoughtful. As Nana had said, he would need to become strong to protect his mother. Stretching out his hands, he uses the ice dart technique and positions himself in front of his mother, saying he won't let her be hit. The battle droid prepares a powerful shot, and Nansheng screams for help, asking someone to save her son. The boy would be hit directly, and the blow would be devastating. But then Nana appears, telling them not to be afraid. This girl was incredible, guys, and she manages to stop time. The boy looks to the side and realizes that his mother is frozen. In a fraction of a moment, the entire area had stopped, and she walks to Luan and touches his head. The boy asks Nana why time had stopped. Even the battle droid shot was frozen. Overwhelmed with emotion, he hugs Aunt Nana and thanks her for saving his mother. He also says that these bad guys were doing evil things. Patting her student's head, she said she came to protect them. He also proved he was a real man standing in front of his mother. As for the bandits, she would deal with them herself. The explosion was close to them. With a sparkle in her eyes, Nana uses a spell. The entire battle droid begins to disintegrate until nothing remains. Nana's wave of energy reaches the entire building. Xiao was also running there to save his wife and realized that Nana arrived in time. As soon as time returns to normal, she starts shouting for her son, and he comes running and hugs his mother. Nana says the boy did very well, and upon touching Nan's body, she begins to feel revitalized. Miss Nana also possesses healing power and was performing a restoration spell on all the people. Everyone was impressed, saying that this woman was very powerful. They even said she was the only one who could move in that space and time. With a serious voice, Nana says the criminals will not escape. She also asks Luan's mother to let the boy accompany her, since Nana was very powerful and could guarantee the child's safety. Then she agrees, telling the boy to follow the master. He hugs Nana and they say they will save everyone. With a happy face, he says that she is very strong. Hearing these words, she feels something warm in her heart. When saying goodbye to the others, she says she will deal with those villains. The spaceship was almost leaving and the criminal hacker began running toward it. In the earpiece, he said he could detonate all the bombs since he had already stolen the data, but his bosses tell him to hurry up and stop stalling. They knew there was a threat and would need to escape quickly. Jang even tries to contact the fourth squad, but they do not respond. The crew inside the spacecraft gives the final order for him to enter immediately. With that, they start leaving the planet Tian Luo. Once at a certain height, they activate the camouflage to become invisible. But our dear Nana wasn't going to let that slide. With our hero in her arms, she begins flying toward the spaceship. She sees the spacecraft leaving, and with a serious look, says they are heading for doom. Stretching out her hands, she uses an icy spell. A lance of energy heads toward the spaceship. When it is almost leaving the planet's orbit, it collides with that power. A massive explosion occurs, destroying everything like fireworks. The ring returns to Luan's finger. The little boy asks what that was. She of course wasn't going to say she killed the people on the spacecraft, so she said it was just fireworks. She has a somewhat serious look, guys. We see that she asked Luan to come along to use the color of his ring. From below, the other people begin to see the explosion, and the colonel wonders what just happened. The battleship of the City of Sinners was destroyed, and the fragments of the spacecraft begin falling back into the city. Looking through a window, we see someone with a somewhat camouflaged hood. The guy sighs, saying the spacecraft was destroyed, but he managed to escape because he wore a spiritual energy cloak that masked his cultivation. He also tells his master, the King of Eternal Darkness, that the ship was destroyed, but he obtained a clue. The attack on the Horizon building caused many casualties and drew the attention of the global press. People saw that a woman saved the spacecraft and were curious to know who she was. At Zilluo headquarters, the colonel was being interrogated. They suspected he was in collusion with the criminals, but he had only released the bandit to ensure the civilians' safety inside the building. But it didn't work, guys. The guy was demoted and even imprisoned. Back at Xiao's house, the doorbell rings. Nana hears the noise and asks who is outside. We see the silhouette of people at the window and the secretary appears, asking why she fled the planet. Nana questions the reason for the visit. The secretary presses a button on the device and says that Nana should know what happened in the building. Some cameras captured the events and she asks if Nana was really there. Nana confirms that she was. At that moment, the secretary was sure that Nana was truly very powerful. An investigative secretary from planet Tiandu said he would like Nana to accompany him. This was because they wanted to ask her some questions. With a sinister look, she asks what would happen if she refused. Just with that look, the guy already started feeling sick and even spit blood. He knew very well that she was someone he couldn't fight. This girl was extremely powerful, and the guy there says that probably if she refused it would bring problems for Luane. Nana said she didn't want to go back to that planet, and the secretary asks if it was because of that little boy. She said yes. His name was Luane, and she even threatens the security team, saying that if they harmed this boy, she would eliminate them all. Everyone starts sweating, and even asks what relationship she has with this boy. Nana said he was her student. The boy was very talented, and was only in that building for a day of fun when he ended up suffering from those attacks. Then she appeared to save him. The secretary said it was enough for Nana to go to the other planet and answer a few questions. Otherwise, it would bring problems for Luane. She even says she knows very well that this little boy is dear to her, but if she didn't cooperate, he could also be treated as a criminal. The investigator gets scared, thinking Nana will hit them, but then she agrees. If it were to protect the boy, she would go with them and answer those questions. I don't know if you noticed, but she couldn't have escaped from that planet. I bet they will want to imprison the girl there. As soon as he arrives from the academy, our dear hero goes looking for the master. He looks in every corner of the house and even comments that at that moment she was already there waiting for him. At that moment she makes an astral projection and explains that she activated this spell to send him the message. The girl said she was going to handle some matters, and our hero became curious. However, she would be away for a while, and that was basically a brief goodbye. And so she disappears. The boy starts crying desperately, thinking he would never see Titi and Nana again. When he reaches her, the girl disappears. Because of this, he ended up being depressed for a whole week, guys. Poor thing. But that ended up being fuel for him to train even more and become stronger. All he wanted was to reach level 20 as fast as possible. After that incident, Ling stopped attending school, and because of that, Luane became the best student of the first year. 3 months had already passed, and our hero's father still hadn't returned from that research trip. To make things worse, it had been 2 weeks since he had given any news to his wife. The scene shifts to the academy, and the principal says they will open a new class of elite youths. Since Luane was one of the best students, he would be selected to participate in the tests of this special academy. However, there would be only 10 spots. Therefore, the tests would be very rigorous. The boy thanks them, saying he would dedicate himself to the maximum. As he was walking down the corridor, he wondered which other students were as powerful as him, and ends up hearing a familiar voice. It was Ling, and she asks if he returned from vacation. The little girl says she only came there to talk to him, and the boy is very rude, asking what she wants. Upon hearing the boy's harshness, she immediately became sad. He still tells her to speak quickly. The girl begins to stutter and ends up disguising it, saying she only came to warn that she would find a way to defeat him. Luane becomes very discouraged, saying that this girl sounded like a parrot, and asks if that was all, if he could already go home. A little angry, she asks why he didn't ask where she had been in the last few months, and the boy says she is very annoying, and that he doesn't care about what happens in her life, saying goodbye and that he's going home. The girl, poor thing, starts crying, guys. She really liked him but didn't know how to react. After her father was imprisoned because of the building incident, she had to stay locked at home. Only after he was released about 3 months later could she go out and return to school. No matter how much she tried to get close to Luane, it always went wrong. She still keeps crying, poor thing, saying that the only thing she wanted was to see his cute little face. During the holidays, he would spend most of the time training, and he really did that. He dedicated himself to the maximum to reach level 20, but he was still at 14. His mother appears, saying that the summer holidays were ending, and at that moment they hear someone opening the door. The boy starts shouting with joy, saying he heard his father's voice, and it really was Xiao who had arrived. The big boy immediately runs to his dad. The father, looking at his wife, says he has arrived. Dear Nan Sheng blushes and hides it with embarrassment, saying she will prepare dinner. Turning to his father, the boy says that mom missed him a lot, and mentioned his name every day. Thus Xiao goes to the kitchen calling for his wife. She was quietly preparing the food. He hugs his wife, saying he missed her, and she says she was worried because he hadn't given news. Then the guy apologizes for making her worry so long and promises he won't take such long trips anymore. Then they sit together to have dinner. The scene shifts to planet Tiando. There at the laboratory residence, we see our dear Nana. After returning to this planet, she took the exams and passed all of them. However, she was forbidden from leaving this place, guys, and would have to stay for a few more years until she got her license again. In total, she would have to go 6 more years without committing any kind of offense. But in the meantime, she was happy because she was teaching some students, and that reminded her of our dear Luan. The security team even kept telling the director not to let her escape from the place, but at the same time they were scared because they wouldn't be able to stop her if she wanted to. On the first day of class, she introduced herself to the students, saying her name. Of course, the little kids were all excited since she was very beautiful, but among all the students there was one girl in particular who caught her attention. Nana kept looking directly at that girl at the back of the classroom. She had blue hair. As she approached, the woman asked how old the girl was and what her name was. She says hello and introduces herself as Dong Kinan Lu, even mentioning her age. At that moment, Nana tries to touch her head, but the girl was very fast and manages to dodge, all suspicious. But we know that Nana is way smarter and manages to reach the girl, and with that she touches her head, making Lu feel impressed. It was incredible for someone to keep up with her speed, and even Nana was using a kind of cultivation in her mind. When she withdrew her hand, Nana said it was okay and that she had understood. Of course, Lu was more confused than anything. Miss Nana had done something to her and even said she understood. But understood what, right? This rookie teacher would teach ancient arts and ask if he knows anything about it. Changing planets, over on the planet Oluo, that little redhead was performing Tarzan's concert. His new song ended up being a hit, and people couldn't stop talking about it online. Because of that, he would need to write another song. With a serious look, he says he will think about it. Returning to school, Luan says goodbye to his father, and Zhao tells the little boy to take care of himself. Looking back, he sees the colonel with his daughter, and as he approaches, he welcomes the officer. The guy says he's no longer a colonel since he was demoted, and even congratulates Zhao for getting a promotion. Our protagonist's father asks what happened, and the man invites him to have a coffee and tell the whole story. When they arrive, the ex-officer commander tells everything that happened that day in the building. In the end, the guy just wanted to save the people, but ended up taking all the blame. What really intrigued the ex-colonel was Zhao's son. He realized that the boy was born with 2 soul spirits, which gave him unmatched talent, and even instructs Zhao to pay close attention to his own son. The researcher didn't want to attract too much attention and was afraid that people would discover his son was born from an egg. While mixing the tea, the ex-commander suggests that the boy join the army training. He, as an ex-commander, could easily make a recommendation, and even mentions that he would serve very well as a pavilion of the god of war. Zhao politely thanks him, but thinks it wouldn't be good for his son to join the army. He had already been separated from his son for a long time, and if he made him join the army, he would be even further away. The officer knew very well how it felt to be far from his own children. As they say goodbye, he says that if Zhao changes his mind, he just needs to talk to him, and so we reach the welcome ceremony. But our protagonist and Ling didn't go there. Since the two were excellent students, they were selected to take a test to enter the elite class. The best elementary students would participate in a program to enter a special class. This elite program would gather only the geniuses of genius. In other words, according to the teacher, only the best of the best would be accepted. After saying this, he begins to emit a very powerful cultivation wave. Only the students who could resist this pressure would pass to the next test. Something catches the teacher's attention. Little Luan wasn't feeling any discomfort. After noticing this, the teacher introduces himself, saying his name was Shang Tian, and also says that the first test will start now. They will see the power level of each participant. It was a simple simulation, and our hero showed that he was at level 14. Meanwhile, Ling had risen to level 16. The girl surpassed our hero, guys. Next, the teacher says he will move on to the next test, and after placing a kind of object on their heads, begins measuring their spiritual power. A scientist comments to the teacher that something seems to have gone wrong with Luan. This is because his spiritual power level was at 99. She wanted to do another test, but the teacher said there was nothing wrong. That boy was really strong, especially since this child was a little strange, having relatively weak soul power, but his spiritual power was surprisingly strong. Next, they prepare them to enter a kind of simulation powder. The boy gets all excited, because it was basically a virtual reality world, but any damage they suffered in this world would be carried over to the real world. Thus the computer loads and everyone is teleported to a virtual world. Upon arriving, the main mission was to try to survive as long as possible. The boy gets even more excited, saying that this simulated world looked a lot like the real world. Besides, his cultivation power was transmigrated just like it was here in our world. He kept testing to see if he could feel pain pinching his own cheek and ran off all excited, saying that now it was burning. Trying to focus on the mission, he said he wasn't there to play around since the professor mentioned that the simulation was really important. Since our boy grew up in the city, he didn't have much idea of what life in nature was like. On the big screens of the science base, they were watching everything and even commented that kids these days didn't know much about basic knowledge since they grew up in the city. The scientist said it was to be expected because humans nowadays didn't really know how to survive in the wild. But Luan wasn't worried at all, quite the opposite. He even looked distracted but ended up hearing a distant noise and turned carefully, hiding behind a rock. In the distance, a giant monster was passing by. That was a hippopotamus, and his father had already told him about those beasts. By the size of the creature, it seemed friendly and must have been around 800 years old. All excited, the little boy said it felt like being at the zoo, and he only knew that information because his father was a researcher, and that was his job. Xiao traveled through planets discovering new life forms. His father even mentioned that one of the planets with the most ancient spirit beasts was the Dragon Emperor's planet. Super excited, Luan kept imagining what the creatures from that place would look like. The teacher was a little worried, saying that this boy seemed clueless and didn't care about the dangers of the forest. Little did she know that Luan was actually paying attention and managed to dodge a surprise attack at the last second. The boy only looked dumb, but he wasn't dumb at all. What was behind him was a pack of wolves, each around 100 years old. That's why they were probably around level 30, with very high strength and speed. Both Nana and his father had already told him about the dangers of those creatures, and the only thing he could do now was get as far away as possible. The wolves started walking stealthily, and holding 2 energy spheres, the protagonist decided to fight them. Since he had no other choice, he rushed forward shooting energy blasts, but the wolves dodged them easily. But that was just a distraction because the boy started running. The professor wondered why the boy chose to run, since wolves preferred to attack humans from behind. Basically, he was putting himself in danger. But of course, the boy had a trick up his sleeve and started shooting energy forward. It looked like he was just wasting energy, but no. He ended up hitting the hippopotamus that was in the lake ahead. The creature got furious and the boy jumped over it, launching another blast backward. The energy spheres he had thrown split into 3. It was clear that it was meant to attract the hippo's attention. The wolves started to get scared because the hippo was gigantic and right in front of them. Seeing that terrifying scene, the wolves ran away with their tails between their legs. The boy took a deep breath because that had been more dangerous than he expected. The teachers realized the boy wasn't just strong but also a strategist. Everyone watching wondered how he came up with such a brilliant idea, especially for having the cold blood to get so close to a hippo. The boy thought those creatures weren't that dangerous, but he was wrong. They were deadly. The scientist suggested to the professor to remove the boy from the simulator, but he wanted to see how far his experience would go. The boy had basically already passed, but the professor decided to leave him longer. That was the first time he came face to face with such a creature, and even though it looked powerful, it didn't pose a real threat to him. It was as if he had managed to tame a wild beast. The scientist commented to the professor that now she understood why he showed so much interest in that boy. At that moment, he heard a distant sound, and the birds began flying through the forest. Even the giant hippo got scared, and when he looked back, he heard a familiar voice. It was Ling, running desperately and asking for help. Behind her came a three-eyed magic monkey. The boy knew very well the power level of that creature, so he started running with Ling to try to help her. Even using the silver-blue grasses, he couldn't get enough speed since he was slower and the monster almost caught up with them. Ling turned and asked what he was doing. "Hold on, girl, I should be the one asking. Why are you running from a monster like that?" Then she explained that she saw a little white baby monkey. She thought it was cute and tried to get closer, but the closer she got, the more it moved away. So she ended up grabbing it by force, and the little monkey started crying for help. After that, its mother appeared and started chasing her. That's what Ling said. The boy asked what she expected him to do against a three-eyed magic monkey. After all, those monsters were extremely fast and powerful. But of course, our protagonist had a trick up his sleeve and stepped back, saying he would help her. Ling asked what the hell he was doing, and as he pushed her from behind, he managed to dodge the attack. They looked back to see if the monster was still coming, and shouting, he told the girl to fall back, then used his ice dart. Of course, that didn't deal any damage to the monkey, but the attack was only meant to get its attention. With tears in her eyes, Ling asked why the boy wanted to help her, and realized he had distracted her on purpose to keep her safe. In the command room, they asked if they should shut down the simulation, but it was a great chance for the boy to evolve his powers. He was there running in pure desperation, jumping from tree to tree with the monkey chasing behind. When the monster was about to touch his shoulder, he used another technique. He had created some kind of ice board. Guys, the dude had already turned into Tony Hawk, and just when he was about to try a radical move, the monkey destroyed his board. In the command room, they were discussing whether to let the simulation continue or shut it down. But they were curious because our protagonist had a secret power and they wanted to see it. The monkey began to emit a strong light from its eyes, and at that moment he used his innate mental secret technique. That power hit the protagonist's mind, and the psychic impact was so great he couldn't even hold back his scream. Since he was off balance on the board, he ended up falling off a cliff. At that moment, the professor realized he had made a mistake. He should have turned off the simulation much earlier, and the boy fell unconscious to the ground. The monkey prepared to deliver the final blow, but the silver-blue grasses began to emit a glow. Seeing that scene, the monkey struck the attack but missed on purpose. It was as if it had been influenced by our protagonist's magic. He even started to feel fear as he looked at the hero and fled from there immediately. After the whole disaster happened, they shut down the simulation. Back in the real world, the professor called all the doctors because the boy wasn't doing well. That's because all the damage he suffered in the simulation was transmitted to the real world. Xiao, hearing the news that his son wasn't well, rushed immediately to the academy. Nancheng also got a message on her device and ran to the hospital. The scene shifted to the surgical center, and our protagonist had just undergone a few procedures and was unconscious. Of course, his mother was crying desperately. At that moment, a light came on, showing that the doctor was coming to meet them. Desperate, the parents asked how Luan was doing. Removing his mask, the doctor said it was more complicated than he thought, but their son didn't suffer any physical damage, only mental. He had dived into his own consciousness and was in some kind of coma. As he said goodbye, the doctor asked the parents to pray a lot for him to recover. The parents were devastated, and the professor appeared in the back with a sorrowful face. He begged for forgiveness, saying he was sorry and should have shut down the simulator earlier. The man ended up losing his job. 3 days passed and Ling went to visit. Crying a lot, she felt guilty. After all that had happened because of her recklessness. Full of anger, she said she was useless and good for nothing. The girl just liked him, and wanted to confess her feelings but couldn't. At the academy, the only ones who passed were precisely Ling and our protagonist Luan. They were just waiting for him to wake up from the coma so they could go to the new university. Meanwhile, the boy was having strange dreams. It was as if he saw several celestial beasts fighting against each other. Because of that battle, a massive energy began to flow between them and caused a gigantic explosion. It seemed that the energies representing those creatures were completely opposite. Because of those dreams, the boy suffered and you could see the energy flowing through his body. Nancheng noticed that her son was writhing in pain. Running through the corridors and calling the doctors, they reached the surgery room with the equipment and realized that Luan's vital signs were unstable. They gave the boy an injection, and soon after he started stabilizing his energies again. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to TNL's Municipal Stadium. There was a concert by Master Lee, the stage name of Tarzan, and all the girls said they loved him. As soon as the show started, you could tell the guy was amazing. The lyrics were really good, but I'm not going to sing them for you here. The song's lyrics were full of symbolism, as if they spoke of something that happened in the past or would happen in the future, and all the songs were written by him. The girls looked enchanted and commented that he didn't smile, but it didn't matter. He was handsome. At that moment the lights went out, and as he bowed he apologized, saying he needed to leave for a moment. And just like that, the guy simply disappeared. He had left his own concert, and the girls began to wonder what had happened. The stage lights came back on, and on the microphone someone began asking the audience to stay quiet. It was the redhead, and she asked everyone to wait, saying that Master Lee would return bringing a big surprise. The girls stayed alert, curious to know what that surprise was. The stadium went wild. The scene returned to the hospital, where our protagonist was hospitalized. His mother was outside dozing off since she hadn't slept all night. Master Lee had gone to the hero's room, and incredibly, he also felt a very strong connection with the boy, but he didn't even know who that kid was. He just felt he was going through a critical moment and went there. Looking closely at him, he noticed that Luan was sick and then touched his forehead. He felt a strange energy, then he touched his stomach. It was as if the two were in sync, each feeling the other's energy. Master Lee became very serious, especially since he managed to remove those spirit marks and then performed a cultivation on the boy. And surprisingly, his hands also released the same energy as Luan's. He didn't know what that meant, but basically, he was showing the same type of element, even releasing those green-silver grasses. Nan Cheng was outside, not hearing anything. Some more time passed. The redhead was worried because the fans started yelling in the crowd. It had been half an hour since Tarzan had disappeared and he still hadn't come back. Using the device, she contacted him asking what had happened. Pointing the camera outward, she saw the situation. The crowd was shouting, demanding ticket refunds and even threatening to destroy everything if he didn't show up. The crowd was really going wild, and the poor redhead didn't know what to do. At that moment, a song started playing. She recognized Tarzan's voice and people began calling out for Master Lee. The guy started descending from the top of the stage using his elemental energy. It was a kind of pyrotechnic show with his magic, and the girls were mesmerized. It was a new song he had made and the women were even more in love. Besides the song being magnificent, he also created special effects with his new magic. That's why everyone said Master Lee had prepared a big surprise. He was truly talented, and the show even looked like a Pink Floyd concert, guys, with lights everywhere. When he finished, he apologized for the delay and said the new song was called Love Time. The women went crazy, and as he turned around he said he wanted everyone to enjoy the end of the show. Moments later, the crowd was ecstatic, saying it was the best concert of their lives. It seemed like the guy had some kind of power that made people fall in love. When he went back to the dressing room, the redhead asked what had happened. It was incredible because he had disappeared for 30 minutes and returned with a splendid song. That day was marked in history. Back in his room, he kept wondering who that child was. And the strangest thing of all was that he could feel Luan's pain and helplessness. It was as if that little boy had a connection with him and had made a plea for help. Placing his hand on his head, he sat in deep thought, wondering what that was. Meanwhile, the boy was still hospitalized, and when morning came, he opened his eyes, waking from the coma. Nan Cheng was moved to see that her son had recovered, and of course he immediately said, "I'm hungry," and his mother ran to hug him, happy to see he was okay. Some tests were done and they didn't find any after effects. All excited, she began giving him fruit to eat. A nurse appeared saying that a package had been delivered as a gift in Luan's name. The boy's mother took it curiously, and as soon as she opened it, she saw that it was concert tickets. They got excited because they were tickets to Master Lee's show, a highly anticipated event. The nurse asked if Nan Cheng wanted to sell them to her. But of course the boy's mother wouldn't sell them, since she was his #1 fan. She even asked the nurse who had sent the tickets, but the nurse said she didn't know, that the delivery was anonymous. Even so, she figured the academy had probably sent them as compensation for the accident. All excited, she told her son that soon they would go to a long-awaited concert. 4 days passed, and they went to the stadium where the show was going to take place. It was packed full of people. Chow didn't even imagine that this Master Lee guy had so many fans. They had already been waiting in line for several minutes. Nan Cheng noticed that their tickets were black and a little different from the others. One of the staff members explained that those tickets were VIP and that they didn't need to stay in line. After wasting a few good minutes, they went to the correct entrance. When they got there, they realized they would be sitting in the second row. And of course, Nan Cheng got super excited, telling her son that they were really lucky. Moments later, the show began, and when Tarzan appeared on stage, the women all fell in love. Luan's mother was really close to the stage, and as soon as Tarzan started singing, he looked directly at Luan and felt a connection with the boy. Seriously guys, we could already start making theories because I already noticed what those two are. Nan Cheng got all emotional, with her cheeks blushing, thinking that Master Lee was looking at her. But we know he was looking at her son, at Luan. Then he thanked everyone for coming to his show. And before continuing with the next song, he said he would like to invite someone on stage to sing with him. The girls went crazy, begging to be chosen and even started raising their hands. This would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Backstage, the directors were asking what Master Lee was up to, but his agent, the redhead, said the director should trust the artist. Even so, she had no idea what he was planning either. The guys started walking down the stairs and headed toward Nansheng. The woman got all excited, thinking she was the one being chosen, and saw that he was really coming her way. He had a serious look, and the girls started asking who the lucky one would be. In Nansheng's mind, she was certain she would be chosen to perform on stage with him. Then the guy reached out his hand and smiled. He lit up the whole place and ended up pointing straight at Luan, asking the little boy if he would like to come up on stage and sing together. The boy was caught by surprise and pointed to his mother, saying it would be better to invite her since she was a big fan. Lee congratulated the boy, saying his mother loved him very much but explained that she wasn't the one he wanted to invite. It was the boy. Nansheng looked completely disappointed. The boy didn't understand anything. Then the guy went up to him and picked him up in his arms. They looked very much alike. Even their haircuts were the same. He felt a very strong connection with the boy and carried him to the stage. When they got there, the crowd started screaming wildly and the women wondered why he hadn't chosen another girl. Then he starts singing a song about family, talking about loved ones who stayed in the past. The women thought it was a love song, but in fact it was about family love. During the chorus, he hugs the boy and uses a kind of magic similar to the boy's. And surprisingly, Luan also feels a connection with him. Pressing their heads together, he sings something about the love between father and son. That made everything very obvious. People didn't understand anything, but they applauded anyway. Master Lee asks what the boy's name was. He answers that his name is Luan and says he really likes that singer. Lee smiles and says he likes him too because that boy gave him new hope. The show was a success and all week people couldn't stop talking about it. A few days passed and Luan received an invitation to join the Special Level Talent Academy. He talked with his parents and said he really wanted to enter this new talent class. He wanted to become as strong as teacher Nana and protect his mother. Nansheng was so emotional, saying her son was adorable, and then they decided to accept. They moved to the city where Tianluo Academy was located. Everything was funded by the university. The Tianluo Academy was huge. They promised to pay all expenses to make it easier, since Luan's family didn't have much money. As soon as they arrived, a teacher welcomed them and showed the place. To improve his studies, they offered him a place in the dormitory. He joined the second year along with more experienced students, and stayed in room number 333. The dorm had 3 beds and the teacher said Luan was part of the first group of young talents. There were more than 30 students in the same class and some would be eliminated if they had low grades. He got nervous, trembling, since the tests would become harder and harder. After that, the teacher said goodbye and asked him to feel comfortable. Luan started looking at his roommate's stuff. The upper bed was free, so he climbed up to rest. Shortly after, someone woke him up. It was his new friend who introduced himself and asked the newbie's name. Luan introduced himself and the chubby one's name was Khan. He even showed the stuff of their other roommate named Lang. Khan invited his new friend to go to the cafeteria to meet the others. When they got there, Luan was surprised because the first person he saw was Ling. She asked how he was, and the boy replied he was fine. All embarrassed, she thanked him for saving her the other day. But the guy went straight and said it wasn't her fault, and that he didn't even get hurt. I was already getting mad at this boy because he totally ignored the girl. She was visibly upset and sad. Khan asked if Luan knew that girl named Ling, and he replied yes, that they studied at the same school. There were rumors she was one of the best students in school. Sad, she went to her classmate's table. The blonde guy, all cocky, asked if she knew that new boy. She said yes, that she studied with him at another school, and the guy quickly asked if she liked him. The girl stays silent. With a serious look, she says she had never beaten him in combat. With that, the blonde guy already realized that the new boy was very powerful since he managed to defeat Ling. He kept staring at Luan, thinking this would be his new rival. The white-haired boy was that Lang, the roommate of our hero. Then the protagonist goes to him and introduces himself. Without even properly introducing himself, the boy already asks what soul power Luan had reached. The protagonist replies that he was at level 14, which was a bit low, making the others disappointed. Indignant, Luan asks why they made that face. The chubby one explains that the class of 30 students was divided into 10 groups of 3, and surprisingly their group was the weakest. If they kept that way, they could lose their place in the special academy, and if that happened, they wouldn't have another chance. When lunch came, the boys got scared because Luan was eating like an animal. Then he got up to get more for the 10th time, but someone stopped him saying he couldn't. Luan explains that they told him he could eat until he was full. Even so, the boy who claimed to be the coordinator insisted he couldn't go again. "Wait a second, kid, why are you trying to stop me?" Luan asks angrily. But the bully insisted he wouldn't eat again. Reaching out his hand, Luan tries to touch the boy's shoulder, but he dodges at the last second and still insults the protagonist. Trying to intimidate him, the bully bumps into Luan's shoulder. But Luan's cultivation strength was much higher. It was like he had bumped into a rock and ended up being thrown away. The people watching started wondering if a fight would break out, and the school staff went to stop it. Luan tries to explain he just wanted to eat because he was hungry and the other boy was getting in the way. After lunch, the group was called to the gym. Since they caused trouble, they stood up until the first class started. The bully said it was Luan who attacked first, but the protagonist was only thinking about food. The cocky blonde said the boy could fight during recess. He just couldn't fight inside the cafeteria, but outside it was allowed. And they had to do it now, or he would beat both of them himself. The boy who claimed to be the coordinator asked if he could really hit the new guy. Then he went all confident, thinking he could defeat our hero. Immediately, he used the flaming bird technique. His wings glowed in an orange tone, and he charged toward Luan. With a serious look, Luan used the silver-green grass technique and blocked the attack. Surprised, the boy said he never imagined the newbie would be that strong. "Yeah, buddy, get ready, because now you're gonna get it," someone said. In front of him, Luan created an ice dart. The boy tried to block with his wings, but it didn't work. He was hit straight on and flew far away. To make it worse, Luan created a bed of thorns. The boy looked down and realized he was about to be hit directly. That could be a fatal blow. And to make it even worse, Luan appeared above him. With a serious look, he prepared another attack. He kneed the bully, who fainted immediately. The blonde boy realized things were way more serious than he thought. Luan had arrived with full power, and the crowd watching was terrified. Ling commented that he was stronger than before. His roommates also noticed he was good, even being only at level 14, helping the coordinator to stand up. The blonde boy said he fought well but had lost, and since at that academy everything was about strength, he reached out and shook Luan's hand. The protagonist remained cold and calculating. At that moment, the blonde guy noticed something strange. It was as if the newbie was draining his magic, and surprisingly, he couldn't let go of the boy's hand. Besides having his energy drained, the handshake was incredibly strong. Sweating cold, the blonde asked him to let go. Luan released him, and people around started asking what kind of element he used. He had a twin martial soul, meaning 2 elements, and the chubby one got all excited. They even commented among themselves that it wasn't smart to provoke that new guy. Kanan asked if he really had a twin martial soul. That was really cool. Our hero showed that he truly had the silver-green grass, and also an ice element. Actually, those 2 elements were quite versatile. The ice element was in fact water, which could be used in many ways. Kanan said he also had a special power and wanted to show them. The chubby one took a small coin out of his pocket. "Wait, you fight with coins? Have you ever heard of someone fighting with money?" "Of course not," he replied. "I use coins to summon magical beasts." But there was a catch. He couldn't summon powerful beasts every time. It was unpredictable. A strong creature could appear, or a completely useless one. Lang kept saying that Kanan's power wasn't very reliable. Then the silver-haired boy said his power was the white dragon spear. He had a very fast attack, and Luan was quite surprised, but there was a problem. His speed was so high that he couldn't aim properly. The chubby one touched his friend's arm and said that actually he was very fast. Yeah, they really had to think positively, since all of them had obvious weaknesses. Moments later, they went to their room to rest. In the afternoon, they would have other classes, and that's when the secondary professions class began. The teacher asked which of them wanted to learn how to operate a robot and even said there were many professions they could study at the school. Then he started asking each student what they wanted to learn. Some wanted to be warriors, and others wanted to be warship pilots. Our hero paid attention in all classes, and the chubby one said he also wanted to learn 2 professions. All excited, Luan said he wanted that too. He wanted to be a special warrior and a warship pilot. But the chubby one said that wasn't very good because it didn't make sense to mix those 2 professions. Luan asked what the chubby one wanted to be, and he replied that the 2 professions he wanted to follow were Holy Armor Knight and Warship Pilot. They were exactly the same ones Luan wanted, but the chubby one said he was a genius, unlike Luan. Then the protagonist asked what his test score was and if he got more than 100. The chubby one was surprised and asked if Luan also got more than 100. At that moment, the teacher asked why they were talking so much and told them to be quiet so as not to disturb the class. The protagonist explained that they were talking about wanting to learn 2 professions. After they mentioned which ones, the teacher said they could follow both careers, but they would have to work very hard. The chubby one said his grades were high, so he believed he could do it. Curious, the teacher asked if they scored more than 50 points, and the chubby one snapped his fingers, saying that he and his friends scored more than 100. Scoring over 100 points was almost impossible. If they were telling the truth, they were geniuses among geniuses. Boys who appeared only once every few thousand years, so it was quite likely they could make it. And so both decided to take the 2 classes. After a long day of studying, a supervisor came to Luan and asked him to follow. The man had heard that Luan wanted to be a warship pilot and also a warrior in armor, but to study both disciplines, he would need to go through a series of evaluations. The school had to be sure they had potential. That evaluation would take place within a week, and then the scene moves to dorm room 333. The chubby one got all excited, saying they would take the test together. They were thrilled, saying they wouldn't be last anymore, but the girl and Lang weren't that excited. They start an argument, saying they should trust each other more. Lang says it's not a matter of trust, but of being realistic. With a slightly awkward smile, Luan tries to calm things down. Then the boy calls everyone to go to the training room and see if they were strong enough. Minutes later, they arrive there and the big guy is completely amazed. Since it was an elite academy, the equipment was highly technological. Kanan says that chamber was much safer than the others, so the hero makes the registration and sits inside the simulator. Moments later, they are transported to another world and the connection between the three students is completed. They end up in the city of Lone. It was an ancient city, and when he got there, the protagonist was naked. They started teasing him, saying that every new student appeared there with no clothes on. He was only wearing shorts and everyone kept laughing. Right after, the big guy receives a gift, and when he unwraps it, it's a very stylish outfit. The boys even get jealous, asking why he got such a cool outfit. The chubby one explains that this simulated world was actually controlled by the Federation's leader and known as the Soul World, an extremely perfect place. To be able to train, they needed to imagine that world as a game. And unlike other simulators, in this one their bodies were actually transported inside the place. It was just like that game from Hunter x Hunter. They even said that the NPCs in this world were real people, and since they had just arrived, they didn't have any money yet. Because of that, they go to the training hall, and the woman says they need to take a primary evaluation, which costs 1 soul coin. The chubby one had forgotten they needed money earned inside the game, so he tells the hero they should complete a few missions first to get that cash. After accepting a mission, they are teleported. The boys arrive at a scene that looks like a coliseum. If they managed to defeat the creatures, they would earn 2 soul coins. The monsters appear instantly, and they were lots of level 3 wolves, making Luan worried. However, if they fought as a team, they could win. Lang immediately starts using his draconic spear. The strategy was for him to draw attention so his friends could defeat the creatures. Tossing a coin, the chubby one makes his summoning. The coin flies high and a big portal opens. Meanwhile, Lang draws the monster's attention, attacking with his spear toward them. The boy was really fast but didn't seem to have good aim. Realizing he was surrounded, he retreats. Lang's movements were unpredictable, and seeing that Luan says he can't cooperate if they stay too far apart. A claw starts to come out of the portal, and the chubby one celebrates, thinking he managed to summon a powerful monster. But what comes out is simply a cute kitten. When it sees the sharp-toothed monsters, the kitten runs back into the portal, which closes right after. Embarrassed, the chubby one admits his summons aren't very reliable. And there was Lang trying to play it cool while the protagonist realized his team wasn't that good. The monsters weren't even that strong, but there were too many. Stretching out his hand, he decides to use his power. Several ice darts are launched and the chubby one panics since he couldn't fight against so many. And that's why the protagonist exists, to save the scared ones. He pushes his friend to the ground and creates a sort of ice corridor to keep him safe. Throwing a silver-green grass, he tells his friend to pull it. The boy pulls hard, making the protagonist dodge the attacks. Next, he calls Lang to come closer and asks the chubby one how long he needs to recover energy and make another summon. Since the kitten was weak and didn't use much energy, he'd need only 30 more seconds. A bit discouraged, Luan decides to give him another chance, saying that next time they'd need a powerful monster. Lang comes toward them at full speed, but since he can't control his direction well, he ends up crashing into his teammates. Luan can only think his friends are a bunch of idiots. At that moment, they find themselves surrounded by several creatures. In despair, he asks Kanan to make a new summon while he creates an ice shield to buy some time. Taking a deep breath, the chubby one says they're finally safe, trying to give the team some hope. He says that now he's going to summon a powerful hero. This hero is going to be a giant bear, he says. "Alright man, stop talking and just summon already," replies Luan. To everyone's surprise, the monsters start launching fireballs. The wolves had evolved and now could spit flaming fire. Luan yells for his friend to hurry and tells Lang to buy them time. Using the draconic spear, Lang deflects all the fireballs. However, the boy is thrown far away and the hero needs to save him using his silver-green grasses. Lang's hand ends up being cut by his own spear. Now that the 30 seconds have passed, Kanan can make another summon. But at that moment, a flame is launched toward Luan. The chubby one throws the coin exactly at that instant. Blocking with his arms, the protagonist says he'll endure the attack. The portal opens right behind them. However, the protagonist is hit by the explosion and thrown straight into the portal. When the summoning is about to begin, the hero touches the portal's edges and something happens. A bright shining light starts to glow, and from it, a woman's legs emerge. For the first time, Kanan manages to summon a girl, and that girl is none other than Lu, student of Master Nana. She is surprised to realize she was in a different place, surrounded by creatures. Without thinking much, she activates her magic and releases a wave of ice on all enemies. The boys are astonished, and Kanan starts celebrating, saying he managed to summon a little waifu. "That's a beautiful human," he shouts. The hero looks at his own hands, wondering if he was the one who caused that. The girl asks the chubby guy who he is and where she is. All excited, the chubby one says she's really beautiful and mentions that he summoned her into this other world. They think she's from another universe, but she says she's probably from the same world as them. Then the chubby one explains that this is the Soul World. "Wait a second, Soul World. So you summoned me inside a simulation chamber?" she asks. The chubby one is surprised she knows about that, and even Luan asks how she has that information. At this moment, an extra story begins. Basically, this series was having an anniversary and the author made a special chapter. It showed Master Li saving the protagonist from spiritual monsters, and surprisingly they had the same magic and looked very similar physically. Besides that, Master Li was also overpowered, just like Nana. Next, they mention that they look alike, and our protagonist walks away. In that dream, the girl Lu ends up asking if the boy was okay and even wonders why he was saved. The boy says he had dreamed about her during the attack of the magical beast, and of course the girl gets all embarrassed. And that's how we finish this special chapter. I made a long summary so it wouldn't interrupt the video sequence, but in that special chapter it implied that Master Li is Luan's biological father. There you go, guys. I think this mystery is already solved. Back to the story, Lu ends up looking into our protagonist's eyes, and surprisingly also feels an attraction to him. She mentions that it was precisely the boy's aura that brought her to that place, but the chubby one was jealous and said he was the one who performed the summoning. However, they needed to deal with those wolves first and asked Lu for help to defeat the creatures. She ends up revealing that she had 2 magic circles, and of course the chubby one immediately falls in love, and pointing her fingers she says she'll wipe out those creatures and unleashes an extremely powerful tornado. Inside that tornado there were also benevolent spiritual beings. Next she summons her draconic spear. She had a range of very powerful attacks, and with the combination of the spear and the tornado she began defeating all the monsters there. Lang noticed she also had a spear and tried to analyze how she fought, but of course Luan wouldn't just stand still and decided to help her. Striking the spear on the ground, she starts throwing all the creatures far away. The girl was really overpowered, guys, and she was defeating those monsters with little effort. However, it seemed the creatures had evolved and become stronger. To help the girl, he ends up entwining his silver-green grass. He wraps the grasses around her waist. She realizes he's sending energy to her, and in that moment the two stare into each other's eyes. You can already ship these characters. Her power was strengthened, and with that she creates an even stronger hurricane. Looking at her own hands, she notices she has a greenish aura. Next, our hero launches several ice darts, and fighting together they show great synchronization. She even becomes curious to know who this boy is, and when she looks at him she's sure it was because of his power that she was summoned to that place, especially since it seemed their souls were connected. Thus the evaluation ends and they can return to the training room. The summoning had finished and she goes back into the portal. Next they go to the training shop and make the payment with 2 soul coin. The chubby one asks Luan what that was all about. He was basically jealous since he summoned a girl and she was giving attention to the hero instead. But even Luan didn't know what that was. With an awkward laugh, the chubby one says it's the first time he's ever summoned a human being. However, Lang says something went wrong. When Luan was thrown away by the explosion, he ended up touching the portal, and that influenced the summoning. Our hero realizes that Lang is very sharp and even mentions that's exactly what happened. Acting clever, the chubby one says it's good to test it again to confirm if that's really it. Then they go once more to the training room. When performing the portal summoning, he asks our hero to touch the edges, and that's exactly what Luan does using his silver-green grass technique. That light is emitted again and Lu appears in the portal, surprised, asking if she was summoned there once more. Realizing she was, she makes a bored face. The chubby one celebrates, saying the summoning worked for the 2nd time and now his technique is reliable. The wolves appear again to attack them, and he asks for the girl's help to destroy the creatures, promising to explain everything later. Then she asks him to wrap the silver-green grasses to give her strength, and that's exactly what he does. Thus she becomes much more powerful. The power of her soul was strengthened, and with that she creates a gigantic tornado, making several benevolent souls fight by her side. That way they defeat the wolves without much difficulty. Now that the situation was resolved, she asks for explanation. Then they say that the chubby guy has the power of summoning and that they were testing to see if it was Luan who was interfering with it. They explain that they live on the planet Tanglu and ask where she lives. Lu admits that she lives on a neighboring planet and even says that she probably has some kind of connection with them. Turning to his friend, Luan asks if he really can summon beings from other planets, and the chubby guy, all smug, says he can summon beings from any part of the universe. The girl gets angry, saying that they are treating her like a simple summoning, and because of that she returns to her portal and leaves. Laughing from the back, Lang starts mocking, saying that his friend's spell wasn't that reliable after all. But surprisingly, they hadn't actually defeated those monsters, and they returned. Now that Lu was no longer there, they would have to defeat those creatures on their own, and our hero rushes toward them. The creatures could breathe fire just like last time, but this time our big guy was prepared and punches the creature right in the chest. It ends up hitting its companions behind it, and next he prepares a spell in his hands and freezes the wolf that was right behind. This was the perfect moment for Lang to finish the battle, but remembering that he couldn't properly control his aim, he ends up missing. But Luan had a strategy and asks his friend to hold his hand. That's exactly what he does, and when he touches, he passes on a kind of strengthening power. The fat guy even complains, saying that he feels a burning pain in his chest as if his whole body were on fire. After the bad sensation goes away, he becomes much stronger and manages to finish the battle. And to deliver the final blow, Luan prepares the Dragon Punch. This was the technique he had learned from dear Nana, and so he hits those monsters with his attack, launching them through the air. We see that our hero's Dragon Punch had become much more powerful than before. Meanwhile, in another part of the planet, Master Li was feeling all of this. Surprisingly, he had a connection with his biological son, and it was as if they were in total sync. The scene shifts to another planet where Lu was talking with her master, explaining about the summons. Nana says that it's because this boy must have some kind of magical synchronization with her. All curious, she asks exactly what had happened. The girl explains everything that happened, and when she mentions the silver patterns on the green grass, Nana already knew it was her former student. Touching her student's shoulder, she asks if the boy was handsome and if he had black eyes. A bit embarrassed, Lu says yes and even asks how her master knew. There was a great chance that this child was Luan, and because of that, Nana becomes very hopeful. She also says that when Lu sees that boy again, she should ask if his name is Luan. So they decide to stay together waiting for the next summoning to happen. After finishing the training, they leave the combat room, and Lang, all emotional, says that Luan could strengthen him. That was a very good ability, but it was better to hide it from other people. Excited, they go to the cafeteria for lunch. As expected, Luan ends up going for several servings. The boys ask how he can eat so much. In response, he says he needs a lot of energy to fight. In his mind, he confesses that he was feeling a bit down, thinking his friends were fools, but in the end he realized they were nice. What really caught his attention was the fact that that girl was the same age as them and was already showing 2 magic circles. He hears Ling talking, and when he looks to the side, he notices she had become friends with that blonde boy, but he wanted to talk to her and asked if they could go outside to chat. Of course, that catches the girl by surprise. They stare at each other, and then they get up to go out. The chubby guy keeps asking what the hell the boy was planning. Jealous, the snobby blonde says that Luan isn't going anywhere, but he repeats that he just wants to talk to Ling. The other boy, who had been beaten up before, starts teasing, saying that they're trying to steal the guy's girl. Holding the protagonist's hands, Ling tells him not to mind the provocation, and so they head outside. Of course, the blonde guy gets all jealous. When they get there, the protagonist asks if she remembers the last time they fought. A little mad, the girl asks if he called her there just to make fun of her, but that wasn't the reason. He had discovered why her spell failed, but before the boy could reveal his theory, the blonde walks up and ruins everything. Ling asks her classmate what he's doing, but he just gives her an angry look. Afraid to go against him, the girl just says she'll talk to Luan after class and leaves with that jerk. In fact, Luan imagined that the girl's spell was cancelled because they had opposite elements. When the elements were similar, he could strengthen them, but when they were opposite, it ended up cancelling. The chubby guy says that the blonde got jealous because he thought Luan was stealing his classmate. But our big guy says that it has nothing to do with that, and turning to his friends, he says it's best to rest because tomorrow's training will be tough. Meanwhile, on the other planet, Nana was already giving up on waiting and tells Lu that she could go back home. The next day, they enter the simulator to start their training. The big guy was intensifying his silver-green grasses, and when he touched his friends, he actually created a kind of strengthening effect. He tries to summon Lu again. Lang gets excited, saying that with this strengthening, he can improve his accuracy with the spear. The portal starts to shine, and they hear someone from the other side. There she was, talking to her master, Nana, saying that she had finally been summoned. When she arrived on the other side, she turned to Leuven and asked if that was really his name. The boy replied yes and asked how she knew that. All excited, she started shouting to her teacher on the other side of the portal, saying that the boy really was called Leuven. From inside the portal, Nana's voice could be heard, and our big guy ended up recognizing that voice. It was an incredible coincidence. Nana's student was summoned by Leuven, and the boy's eyes started to shine as he said how much he missed his master. Unfortunately, she couldn't cross the portal, but she could still talk to him. The poor boy even started crying. Meanwhile, those annoying wolves appeared. Lu said she would take care of them while our protagonist talked with his master. Lang was full of energy because of that power. Our hero wrapped his grass around Lu's waist, making her even stronger. On the other side of the portal, Nana said she needed to run some experiments to understand how he managed to summon her student Lu. The chubby guy was beside them and said he wanted to know too, so they agreed to activate the summoning portal every 10 minutes. That way they could get more accurate experimental results. And they started doing exactly what Nana had instructed. Every 10 minutes they summoned the girl again, and every time it was the same thing. She appeared and defeated the monsters. In the end, the chubby guy started to get tired, and after repeating the summoning more than 10 times, he passed out. The boy turned to Nana and said that his friend couldn't take it anymore. But Nana managed to discover the reason for these summonings. She explained that it was because the boy had the same spatial frequency as Lu. This spatial oscillation was rare, and showed that they had the same elemental frequency, but unlike what they thought, this connection was actually between our protagonist and Nana. That was very interesting. The boy said he would become strong enough to meet her soon. She smiled and asked him not to be so impatient, saying it was better to take one step at a time. Those words left our protagonist a bit frustrated. Lu said goodbye, saying she hoped to see them again soon. Moments later, he woke up from the simulator. When they returned to their rooms, the chubby guy started saying that a new game had been released. It was a racing game they loved, and they even said they couldn't wait to play together. They all got excited, saying one would beat the other. The scene shifted to the student dorm the next day, and the chubby guy was still sleeping. Lang asked if our hero was tired and invited him to train again in the simulator, saying he wanted to be strengthened. Our hero accepted and they went there. Lang summoned his draconic blade, and our hero touched it with his grass-covered hands. It was amazing because he became twice as strong. He even said that with that level of power his aim would be much more precise. When they activated the icy energy, they noticed that the spear's status had changed. They went back to the room saying that Luan's power was really incredible, but he explained that it only worked because their elements were compatible. When there was incompatibility, the magic was cancelled. That was good news because it showed the three of them had a bond. So Lang appointed our hero as the leader of Dorm 333, but our hero didn't even know what that meant. Then Lang explained that, since they were in last place, there wasn't anyone strong enough to be the leader, but now that they had someone capable, they would appoint the protagonist as commander. In the afternoon, another class started and the students realized that the teacher was Mr. G. Everyone started rushing to take their seats. That was because the teacher was really strict. Luan asked his friend what subject the teacher taught, and the chubby guy replied that Mr. G taught the fundamentals of Soul Beast. He even commented that the teacher was basically the devil himself. But the teacher had already entered the classroom and heard everything. With a serious look, he told Kanan to stand up. The boy stood up immediately and the teacher asked him to repeat his last words. He started stuttering, not knowing what to say. Then the teacher ordered him to repeat it right away. He was supposed to say what he had told the classmate beside him. Sweating and stammering, Kanan said that he had called the teacher the devil himself. All the students looked at him, surprised that he had actually repeated it. The teacher stayed serious and told Kanan to sit down, saying he was right, he really was the devil himself, and to prove it he would give all the students a test. They would only be allowed to have lunch if they passed it. Then he started explaining about the magic circles, even talking about their levels. He said that the first person to obtain the 1,000,000-year spirit ring in history, Tang San, founder of the Tang sect, and the second person was Riem, founder of another spiritual sect. Our protagonist paid close attention to everything. The teacher spent a few hours in the morning explaining about evil beasts. After a long explanation, he started asking questions. The first one to be questioned was our hero. The boy had paid attention to everything and began to answer correctly, especially because he already knew most of this information since his parents were researchers. The teacher said everything was correct and that now he could enjoy his lunch. He was surprised because he had actually gotten everything right. Then he went to the cafeteria to have lunch. When it came to magical beasts, completely mastered the subject. Later he went to the simulator to continue his training. He wanted to test how long he could endure alone in a battle and also try out his new abilities. He activated a resonance in his hand and struck the ground to create an explosion. Ice spikes formed where the wolves were, and right after that he launched a sequence of ice darts. Then he prepared a silver grass punch, hitting several wolves in a row. After a few hours of training he decided it was best to stop, especially because stronger wolves were about to appear. But he changed his mind and decided to face those stronger creatures, all to test his power level. He managed to dodge the fireballs easily and made them hit each other. With that strategy he defeated them, but there were still more wolves that appeared afterward. These were even more powerful and launched a fire blast that burned his clothes, leaving our hero defenseless. But of course he didn't stand still and cast a blocking spell. He managed to defend himself and immediately prepared an attack with his right hand. The attack was so strong that one wolf flew far away and got stuck by a kind of ice dagger. The boy was getting so strong that he could handle the monsters by himself. Clenching his fists, he smiled, saying that his strength had increased. A new wave of wolves appeared. With a serious look, he said that now he would have to face light in a more forceful way and charged at the wolf. The creature launched a fireball and an explosion of flames burst behind him. If he had been hit by those golden flames, he would have taken serious damage, but he dodged at the last moment and prepared a light spell in his hands. However, a fireball came right above his head. There was no time to dodge, but our big guy had a trick up his sleeve and gave a little smirk. The silver-green grasses were wrapped around his arms and he managed to defend himself. However, the defense wasn't easy. He was thrown far away. Since he had two elements, a kind of runic magic appeared on his arms, and an intense light began to shine. He didn't even understand exactly what was happening. In just a few moments, he entered a parallel universe. He didn't quite understand what was going on, but magic rings appeared around his body and fused together, forming a single ring. It was as if the two elements he possessed had merged, creating a new, much more powerful magic. Amid so much light, the boy wondered what was happening, and a wave of explosions spread around him. All the creatures were wiped out. And it wasn't a simple explosion, it was a gigantic explosion. Thus he passed the first test and left the simulation. I confess that I would love to live in a world like this, with that kind of technological simulation. Comment if you would also like to enter a world like that. When he left the simulation, he returned to another room still inside the virtual world to receive his reward. Looking at his hand, he wondered what kind of power he had just used. As payment, he received 2 soul coins. The boy didn't care much about money. He wanted to understand how to use that power again. But when he felt his body, he noticed that his elemental magic had decreased. When he returned to the real world, he went straight to his room. He He sat on the bunk bed and wondered why his elemental magic had dropped so much. Touching the tech sphere, he saw that it had fallen to rank 13. It had been hard to reach rank 14, and now he had lost 1 point. The boy began to sweat cold as he had spent the entire month training, so he went into meditation to find out what had happened. It was strange that his energies, whenever they evolved, always ended up dropping 1 level back. After concentrating deeply, he managed to see his energy. It looked like there was a vortex inside his body. That could be what caused the clash between his 2 silver grasses. Since he was inexperienced, the only one who could help him solve that was Master Nana. So the big guy had a brilliant idea. He planned to write a letter explaining everything that had happened. Then together with his friends, he went to the simulation world to summon the girl Lu. And that's exactly what they did, guys. When the blue-haired girl appeared, he handed her the letter and, all happy, asked her to take it to Nana. Don't ask me why he didn't use shared consciousness to talk to her. That wasn't explained, but after a while he ended up receiving a reply from her through a letter. She said that the 2 energies were in conflict inside the boy's body, and what he suspected turned out to be true. Nana explained that his power was decreasing because of these oscillations, but that wasn't necessarily bad news, quite the opposite. She said that when those energies fused, he became stronger, and the boy jumped with joy. After reading the letter with Nana's explanations, he returned to his training routine much more at ease. In the days that followed, the boy learned a lot from that teacher's classes. Secretly, together with his friends, entered the simulator to train and become stronger. They did that secretly so no one would know they were gaining power levels. A month passed and our big guy finally returned to level 14. Ling was studying and her group was one of the strongest in the academy. Because of all their effort, no student was eliminated. After a few days, the semester's final exams began. Both Lang and the chubby boy were excited as Dormitory 333's team had grown stronger. All thanks to our protagonist who had training strategies. The exams were divided into 3 parts, the first being physical fitness and also group combat. In the written test, the chubby boy did very well because he was a genius. Now, the teacher announced they would do physical aptitude tests to measure strength, speed, mentality, and soul power. They were placed on a kind of plate that pressed down on the boys. The first novice managed to hold the plate for 33 seconds. The arrogant blonde managed for 2 minutes and 32 seconds. Ling managed for 1 minute and 57 seconds. Kanan, the chubby friend of our hero, only managed 17 seconds, and everyone made fun of him. The next to try was our dear Luan. As soon as he started, the boy already had a different strategy. He also used his feet to help hold himself. As time passed, the force of the plates only increased. It had already been a minute and a half, and the teacher was surprised, as it seemed he was resisting very well. But as time went on, our hero grew increasingly tired. He was even sweating, with drops falling to the ground. The kid was shaking more than a green bamboo, and the friends asked if he would give up. The situation was stressful for Luan, but he was very determined. He would not give an inch until he became the strongest in the academy. The boy began shouting, putting in maximum strength. The teacher noticed that the plates were returning to their initial position. He might not have a very strong elemental power, but our protagonist's willpower was absolutely superior. The classmates began shouting words of encouragement, and of course the arrogant blonde was there, dying of jealousy. Some students commented that he was standing out more than everyone else. Since the test never ended, the teacher told him to stop. She praised the boy's willpower and said he was very strong. Very politely, he bowed in thanks. He managed to endure for 4 minutes. In the speed test, he also did well and earned 7 extra points. In the soul power test, he did poorly, scoring only 4. 5 points, the worst in the class. In the mentality test, he excelled and earned 10 points plus 1 extra point. In total, he scored 31, 5 points plus 2 extra points. Lang Feng scored 26, 5 points and 1 extra point. The chubby Kanan scored 25 points plus 1 extra point. They excelled in some tests but were the worst in others. The teacher explained that the results would be published and that there was a surprise for the students. Team 33 earned 4 extra points in total, and he congratulated them. The other students were outraged as they were last in the ranking, and even said that the chubby boy was useless and weak. However, these extra points were only given to those who achieved the maximum score in certain types of tests. The teacher also said that if they were upset, they should complain to the principal. The chubby boy celebrated. Lang told him that now they were safe and would not be eliminated from the academy. The other students thought it was unfair and kept complaining. After finishing the tests, our hero called his friends for lunch, and they went to the cafeteria. The Mohawk boy was there fuming, saying they needed to come up with a strategy to defeat Dormitory 33. And the blonde, along with Ling, poor girl guys, she was being influenced, said they really needed to take revenge on that boy. The next test would be group combat. They would be placed in a maze inside the simulation. The more teams they defeated, the more points they would earn. As our hero went to his booth, the teacher explained that each defeated team would earn 10 points. The boy already thought that this maze was a scenario he had never seen before, so the battle would probably be confusing. The system started to load, and soon they were inside this new map. Upon arriving, they realized it really was a confusing maze, and they could even hear noises from creatures. Lang Feng asked what they would do now. Placing his hand on Kanan, Luan said it would be better to map the maze first so they wouldn't get lost. Or better, they could hide and wait for another group to appear to defeat them. The chubby boy asked if hiding would really be a good idea. What they didn't know was that there was a monster behind them. Turning quickly, the chubby boy noticed the monster approaching. It was a giant stone golem. This was the first enemy in the maze. Completely scared, Kanan asked Luan if he should already use his summoning spell. Our hero told him to calm down and that they should only use the summoning portal when the situation became critical. For now, Lang would use his spear to defeat the monsters, and Lang, full of confidence, moved forward. However, the stone golem was very fast and began attacking with its axe. Thanks to training, Lang had become stronger and managed to block the attacks. During the battle, they noticed that the golem was trying to block their path. Our hero had already used his silver grasses and said they would defeat the golem together. Then he placed his hand on his companion's shoulder, using his power amplification spell. With that, they were enveloped in a golden aura, and charged at the monster. With just one punch, our hero managed to break the golem's weapon, and Lang was there too, striking the monster. With the combination of attacks, they finally destroyed the creature, which broke into a pile of small stones. Next, Lang gave a thumbs up to our hero. With that, they opened a new passage, and the chubby boy called them to go that way. But our protagonist had an idea. They should simply sit down. That's right, they weren't supposed to do anything, just sit and wait. So the three sat there waiting for some enemies to arrive. Lang asked if that wasn't a waste of time, and Luan said it wasn't. On the contrary, they would basically wait for the enemies to arrive tired from other battles. On the big screens, the teachers were watching all the fights. Meng commented that Luan's team was acting very differently. Someone arrived a new master saying Luan was very interesting. The white-haired man asked another teacher who those three students were. He had already heard that Dormitory 333's team was the weakest. However, with a slightly strange face, he said that actually they were the best, and the black-haired one also agreed. Thus, the teachers began creating a rivalry among themselves to see who would take these students as pupils. The Gothic teacher said it would be better to teach the students his training method, and Alucard kept saying that the teacher didn't understand anything. The man even touched Alucard's shoulder, saying he had met the students long before him. Alucard seriously asked the other teacher if he had any idea how much he had paid to return to the academy. Unfortunately, he hadn't done the right thing in the past and had paid a high price. They were about to start an argument, but Alucard said he didn't like talking about the past and that when the tests were over he would call Luan to his private office. The Gothic one told Alucard not to lead the children the wrong way and, laughing, claimed he would never do that. I don't know, guys. I don't trust this guy at all. Meanwhile, our protagonist, along with his friends, was hiding. With a cute little face, he told his friends to relax, that the right time would come. Since the test's goal was to survive until the end, they could stay hidden. And since that was an important route, sooner or later some team would appear, so they stayed there resting. Meanwhile, other teams walked through the corridors. The blonde, along with Ling, faced some monsters and after finishing said they needed to hunt other students. Their goal was to defeat the giant golems and open more important paths inside the maze. But they knew they could encounter Luan's team. At that moment, the leader said he heard some strange noise, and Ling mentioned that there were fallen golem stones in the corridor to the right, and it was precisely the place where our hero was hiding. Thus they headed there. The boy commented that it was really bad luck, as they would fight precisely the arrogant blonde's group. They were the strongest team, and had Ling, who was very powerful. The chubby boy asked Lang Feng what they would do, and our hero was already preparing a spell. He told his friends that it was time to stop hiding, and everyone prepared their techniques. Now things were going to get intense. The portal was summoned. Lauren already realized that Luan's team was behind those stones. However, he made the summoning at the wrong time, and now the chubby boy could only summon the portal 3 more times. The blonde leader asked what they were up to and immediately began releasing the Golden Lion King technique. Our hero also passed his type of strengthening to Lang Feng. Thus the spear guy charged forward. With golden fists, the blonde said he would not let it go easy. Next, our hero landed a powerful strike, launching those golems into the air. Meanwhile, Lang went straight at Ling's team boy, and already pointed the spear at him. This guy was also very powerful and immediately prepared a defensive spell, and a kind of shadow appeared behind him. Lang thought he had hit the boy with his weapon, but it seemed to pass through the dark shadow. However, he did not give up and tried to hit again. Meanwhile, Luan was fighting the blonde. This kid was jealous and said he would return all attacks using the Golden Lion Roar Soul technique. Our protagonist's companions were thrown far away, as the spell seemed very powerful. However, our hero, a little stronger physically, managed to resist, but even he couldn't fully endure it. Indeed, Ling knew it wouldn't be easy to defeat Luan. The blonde said it was a waste to use such a powerful technique. He really thought he would be able to defeat our hero, and even tried, in quotes, to land the final blow. Ling also went all out to hit Lang Feng. Surprisingly, an arm came out from inside the portal. It was Lu with her blue magic. The technique reached the blonde's arms. This girl was awesome, guys. As always, she arrived at the last moment to save our protagonist's team. He was still dizzy from the lion's roar. When she arrived, Lu realized the situation was critical. Our protagonist was acting strange with a golden aura on his body. It seemed he had absorbed the blonde's power. Uncontrollably, his eyes began to glow. There Lu was scared as Luan emitted light from his mouth. That was the dragon's roar. A powerful spell was cast over the blonde. Lu even went back into the portal. The corridors began to be flooded with light. A gigantic explosion was about to happen. Ling used her celestial armor technique, but it wasn't enough, guys. Everyone was hit by our protagonist's power. Not even the boy knew what he had done. After the roar, he ended up collapsing unconscious. His friend realized that Luan had defeated all the opponents, and at the same time was worried because he had fainted. To protect Luan, the friend finished off the other opponents with his spear. All received critical attacks and were eliminated from the simulator. It seems that Luan's dragon roar left Lang Feng impressed. It was as if he had used a power that did not belong to him. This was very strange. Since Luan could not fight now, the friend was in charge of protecting him, and already put him on his back, trying to escape the place. The chubby boy, slower than ever, ran behind. They entered a corridor and noticed an opposing team. It was precisely that Mohawk boy. Since Luan's team had just fought, he thought it would be easy to defeat them. Laughing, he said it would be easier than taking candy from a child. Kanan shouted for the companions to run and said that Li, along with Ling, was coming after them. It was a lie, as he had defeated the blonde's team, but it was enough to scare the Mohawk boy, who began to run. All of this was a lie, guys. They fell exactly into the trap. Lang chuckled, as it was the perfect chance to finish off the boys. The Mohawk guy realized he had fallen into the trap and looked back. There was the one who had defeated them. The guy started cursing, saying he was very stupid for falling into such a simple trap. Thus, Dormitory 333's team defeated another team. They may be weak, but they are smart, that we cannot deny. The teachers watched the fights and said they were very clever. Alucard and the Gothic competed to have this team as students. They played mental games, planning to use the boys to teach and pass on their techniques. Luan used the Dragon Roar technique without even knowing about this ability. After that, he fainted, but that meant his martial soul had great power fluctuation. Meanwhile, the scene returned to planet Tiandu. Liu had fled from Luan, since he used the Dragon Roar, and commented that she was scared. She returned in time and said that his golden magic influenced her body. And the strangest thing of all is that the magic he used had a familiar feeling. If you've made it to this part of the video, leave a like and a comment, guys. It's very important. The more comments you leave, the more YouTube recommends our video to other people. That way it's easier to keep bringing continuations for you. When leaving the simulator, the Mohawk guy said that Luan's team were cheaters and went to confront them. However, the Gothic teacher told him to stay put. He was defeated because he trusted an opponent, and that could never be done in a war zone. If he did that in the real world, he would really lose his life. It would not be like the simulator. Therefore, he should become stronger and smarter. The teacher even congratulated our hero's team, saying they did very well. The other students said that was impossible. They were always last in the test. And L's team, that blonde, thought they were very stupid for losing. But it was strange because Luan had copied his technique, and not only copied it, but used it in a much more powerful way. Meanwhile, Our Lady was celebrating as they were no longer last in the class. All the teachers would now keep an eye on this boy because his magics were a little strange, so to speak. Our hero had weak elements, but the way he used them ended up making him stand out. The teacher said that now that the test was over, they could return to the dormitory or go to the simulation room to practice cultivation. However, Luan should wait a bit as the teacher wanted to talk to him. His friend said goodbye, and the boy stood before the two teachers. Alucard caught Luan's attention. The teacher wanted the boy to follow him. Luan found this suspicious, as he had never seen this teacher at the academy. Since he was not following the teacher, it left Alucard a little irritated. Then Alucard asked the Gothic why he was coming along, and the black-haired guy said it was to ensure Luan was not led the wrong way. There were the two teachers arguing over who would teach our hero. The poor boy did not understand anything. Later he arrived at the teacher's room, who began asking some questions and mentioned that he liked the strategy Luan used in the maze. The boy said he hadn't thought of a fancy strategy, he just did what his heart told him. The teacher then said they could say Luan was the strongest of all, but not in the usual perspective. And that was exactly what he liked about the boy. He offered for Luan to be his pupil. The boy wondered what that was about. What do you mean, right? Have a private master within the academy? The teacher asked if he didn't want it. Since Luan wanted to be a spaceship pilot, he could be his master. Wait a minute, teacher. You're a spaceship pilot? Yes, boy, you have no idea of my abilities. And so our protagonist ended up being tricked by this guy. Now he would have a private teacher inside the academy. The other Gothic teacher stayed watching, and then Luan bowed, thanking Alucard for accepting him as a pupil. Laughing, the teacher said he had finally found a successor and that from now on he would be his special student. He was the vice principal of the academy, guys. He was known as the Deceptive Fox. The teacher's real name was Yan Chan Fan, and he told Luan not to reveal his real name to the other students. Then the teacher left. When saying goodbye, he told the teacher to take good care of the boy, as he was promising. Alucard attacked the teacher with a case to make him leave and even said he was very annoying. It seemed that this guy had a dark past, and Luan was there watching the scene. As he turned, the teacher apologized, saying he always lost control with the other teacher, but that the piloting training would start today. The boy was very happy. They went to a spaceship simulator. It was a double simulation cabin. Thus, Luan entered to do his first piloting. Upon entering the ship, the boy was very excited. However, piloting spaceships was not easy, guys. The teacher was there giving instructions while Luan said he was ready. When the ship took off, he felt the pressure It was as if all the bones in his body were being crushed. All of this was thanks to the G-force the ship provided, but the pressure decreased until it became acceptable. Now that he was in space, the boy commented that it was truly amazing. He didn't expect space scene inside the cabin to be so magnificent. However, every time the ship accelerated, he felt discomfort. After a few minutes, they reached the asteroid belt. The one piloting was his teacher, and he performed some maneuvers for the boy to feel the pressure. He even commented that what Luan was feeling was nothing compared to an intergalactic battle. Only those who have gotten sick in simulators know what the little boy was feeling. The teacher began firing some laser beams and rocks to cause explosions, creating a kind of turbulence inside the ship. The boy suffered greatly from motion, and the whole sensation that the simulator gave was 100% real. 20 minutes later, he asked to leave the cabin and ran to the bathroom to vomit. The teacher smiled, saying he managed to endure 19 minutes and 50 seconds. This was impressive, as on his first time, still a child, he had managed only 18 minutes. This meant that Luan had great potential. Then, the teacher told the boy not to get discouraged as he was doing well. He didn't know how, but he managed to return to the dormitory and was there feeling sick. His friends even wondered what he had done. The next day, the scene goes to the cafeteria, and we see Ling there, all thoughtful. There was a group of students asking for explanations, and Ling went there to understand what was happening. Luan had eaten all the breakfast. The boy ate more than 30 servings. Ling wondered how that was possible. It was because he had gotten sick the night before, guys. Whenever he gets sick, he feels very hungry. Then the girl began to defend Luan, asking what those guys wanted him to do if they wanted him to vomit the breakfast back. Luan realized that she was there helping. Hopefully now they stop mistreating this girl, guys, because it breaks your heart. The teacher appeared there, saying he was going to resolve the matter. The kitchen master was already preparing new toast for them to eat, and look at Luan's hungry face, already wanting to eat a little more. Next, he was scolded by the teacher, and in the afternoon he would meet with Alucard. When he looked at the teacher, he already felt a strange sensation of nausea, remembering the simulation ship. However, Alucard had a happy little face, saying that he did very well, and could hardly wait to train the boy again. I bet he already regretted it. The other teachers, when looking at Alucard, were cautious, thinking he was very treacherous. The Gothic teacher was the only one who had friendship with him. So the other teachers didn't know if the vice principal was trustworthy, but hoped he would be a good influence for Luan. Alucard said that after dinner, Luan should meet him for training. With an embarrassed face, Luan said he was a little scared of the training. With a serious face, the teacher said he could not refuse, since he had agreed to be a pilot. Shaking all over, Luan said that Alucard was very scary. The next day, the teacher prepared a very healthy meal, and the hungry boy ate everything, even beginning to see Alucard as if he were an angel. At night, the teacher turned into a demon, putting Luan in the piloting simulator as he had requested before. But he already regretted it, feeling very sick. During that time, his friend noticed that Luan was acting strange, and that his performance at the academy was decreasing. He couldn't reconcile two types of training at the same time. What motivated Luan were the delicious foods. Over time, his body became more resilient. The teacher noticed that his limits were still low, but they were already improving. Lang Feng asked why Luan spent so much time with the vice principal of the academy and wanted to train together in the simulator, but the boy gave little excuses. Kanan mentioned that his mentality strength had reached 200 points. When they asked Luan, he said he didn't know, that it had been a long time since it was measured. As soon as he left the dormitory, the friends became worried, wondering what kind of training the vice principal was giving. Meanwhile, in the room, Alucard and the Gothic banged on the table, saying that he was pushing Luan too hard. However, Alucard knew the student's limitations, and also his potential. He even told the other teacher that he knew what training should be given. Luan might not have had a very strong element, but his willpower and mentality compensated for any difficulty. Extending his finger, Alucard said he hoped that one day he would reach the top, as the best pilot of all. Alucard feared regretting in the future for not giving the boy a proper training. The Gothic knew that the vice principal was an excellent teacher and gave his vote of confidence. However, he would continue observing the type of training given. Since Luan had been training intergalactic piloting for a few weeks, he was already much better. He could dodge all the explosions, but whenever he left the simulator, he was feeling sick. The Gothic commented that this boy's endurance was surprising. Alucard stayed there with "I told you so" face. It's true that this boy was very talented, but they couldn't be making him exceed his limits. The little boy even got there and heard them talking. The vice principal mentioned that he needed to eat very nutritious food to restore his body's energy. In addition, he adjusted the study subjects so that Luan wouldn't accumulate content. The other teacher felt more at ease, since it seemed that Alucard was really interested and concerned about Luan. When he began praising the little boy, Alucard stayed in the background dying of jealousy, because the boy was his student. He was also in the battle armor subject, and said he would ensure that they made a very stylish and strong armor design for him. Afterwards they left. The Gothic got angry, saying that Luan was already taking intergalactic piloting classes and didn't need a battle armor teacher. The Gothic teacher taught that other subject that Luan wanted to take. Now the other exams would begin, which were physical tests. The team with the highest score would be favored, while the others would be eliminated. In the strength test, Luan was doing very well and already exploring his limits. The first guy lasted 5 minutes, and now it was Luan's turn. After a whole week of training, he reached elemental rank 16, and the chubby boy's strong point was mental power, which was at 187. It was time for Luan to take the mentality test, and the teacher in charge wondered if he had become stronger. He sat at the machine, and the teacher was curious to see if the training with Alucard had really produced results. The boy began to concentrate, and the number started rising drastically. It was already at 180, then 190, and everyone was surprised. When it reached 194, the teacher asked if the machine wasn't damaged. His mental power exceeded 197 points, until it stabilized at 199. All the students watching were outraged. It didn't seem that this was real. While concentrating, he felt the energy vortex becoming brighter inside his body. It was as if the center of the vortex changed energy. Each color that shone was a different element, symbolizing that he could have various possible magic. Because of this, he reached 200 in mental power. The boy was absurd, guys. After the physical tests ended, everyone commented on it. The liar team wondered what they could do to avoid being second place. They found it strange and even considered that Luan might be cheating. Ling said he wasn't cheating, as Luan was really very powerful. Lee assured that he was stronger than Luan because he had 2 magic rings. They imagined that if they combined forces they could defeat Dormitory 333's team, so they made a plan to form alliances and defeat our hero's team in the next test. The blonde boy had already been embarrassed about 3 times. Dormitory 333 defended the title of the first team, and everyone would be taken to the simulation world for battles. Kanan asked if he could give up, and the teacher said no. If they lost more than half of the matches, they would lose all points. The boys got discouraged and entered the simulation cabin. They arrived at the arena to face other teams. Since these were team battles, they needed to protect Kanan so he could continue summoning. The strategy was to summon Lu only in critical situations. At that moment, the opponents appeared and it was already decided. The portal would only be used to summon Lu if the situation got bad. Since Kanan used his portal, Luan would use his technique to summon a monster. Upon touching the portal, a light began to appear. The girls' team noticed that the portal was strange and rushed forward, trying to prevent the summoning. Luan was there to protect with his shield. The summoning almost happened, but someone appeared behind Kanan to attack him. A monster's tail came out of the portal and hit one of the girls, throwing her away. Luan was surprised as he managed to summon a very powerful monster. It was a kind of dinosaur or monster, not exactly known what it was. Just with its roar, everyone began to feel fear. The teachers wondered when Kanan had become so strong in summoning. The monster looked at Luan. We know it was thanks to the protagonist's magic touch that it appeared. It seemed that they had a connection. The creature went to Luan asking for affection, and the boy patted its head. The spectators found it strange, but he managed to tame the beast and ordered it to attack the opponents. The giant lizard rushed at the students. The girl used magic to defend herself, and then another student cast attack magic against the monster. But it was useless, as all the girls were eliminated. They had become the winners of this first round, and soon after 3 more students were summoned. They would continue battling until they lost. Now it was the Mohawk guys' team's turn. Again, Kanan prepared a summoning, but this group said there wouldn't be time and rushed forward. Luan went there and used his silver-green grass magic on the portal. Ling realized the summoning wouldn't arrive in time and rushed to defend Luan. The Mohawk boy had a strategy to defeat the team, wanting to beat Luan first, but the boy held the spear, and soon a creature emerged from the portal. The creature had wings and went straight for the boy. With few chances, he was eliminated. The girl was surprised as he was hit right on the head. To increase the humiliation, the monster threw him hard onto the ground. Even Kanan couldn't believe the summons he was performing. This was Emerald Green, an extremely rare monster. Basically, it was the nemesis of all flying creatures. Since he was strong against flying creatures, the little blonde with angel wings panicked and was eliminated instantly, leaving only the girl who already knew she would lose. Desperate, she was also defeated. Thus our hero's team defeated 3 more players. This battle didn't even last 15 seconds. The boy was surprised because thanks to the energy he put in the portal, he managed to summon a legendary creature. This demonic green bird was really powerful, guys. However, the monster hit Luan with a kind of blue flame. Lang asked Kanan why the monster had attacked them. The chubby boy said he didn't know why that happened. Meanwhile, in the teacher's meeting room, they watched the battle and wondered how they managed to summon a legendary being. Probably the monster wasn't fully controlled by the boys since it was very powerful. But it didn't matter, they had won the second match. Dormitory 333 was finally bouncing back, catching the attention of all the teachers. The teacher commented that Luan's main skill was support. He had incredible strength, and the martial arts soul could give an impressive support power. Besides having 2 martial souls, he was also a great fighter. This was quite rare. Alucard mentioned that his student's mentality reached 200 points, which was really impressive. Since his power was increasing gradually, they would need to keep an eye on this boy. Alucard said he wanted to train Luan to continue his legacy. The Gothic said he should give up because that would not happen. The two stared at each other. I'm dying to find out what Alucard did in the past. He even laughed, saying that in a few years Luan could surpass him. But the Gothic suspected something and asked what Alucard really wanted with Luan. If he was training for something bad, he would find out. Alucard simply left without answering. Again, our protagonist team won the 3rd match, and this time they summoned a Hedor dragon. Kanan was improving a lot in summoning arts thanks to Luan's help. Since the summons were running out, they prepared to attack the other team. As soon as the monsters were summoned, they went on the attack. Exactly, that's what they did. Lang received Luan's power. The boys who arrived realized they were already in trouble, and Lang unleashed a blast with his spear on the ground. The opponents jumped to defend themselves. However, in the air, they became easy targets, and Lang hit one of them with the spear. Dormitory 333's team was becoming very good strategically, and Luan knew they couldn't slack off, since they had already fought for a long time and were tired. Another opponent used the Entangled Blades technique, but Luan defended with his water whirlpool and prepared a powerful punch attack. The attack sent the boy flying. To finish, he was still pierced with an ice dagger. The boy was forming a lot of aura, guys. At the same time, Lang began to suffer more serious injuries. The teacher said it was better to take a break so they could recover. They asked the Gothic if they could pause the battles. He said yes, because it would be fairer. Inside the simulation, they realized that no other group had been summoned. They had already won 4 consecutive rounds. After a few minutes, new competitors were thrown into the simulator. They would need to win this match to pass the test and plan to attack by surprise. However, this team that arrived managed to dodge as soon as they were summoned. Nan wondered how they acted so fast. Lang already grabbed his spear and began launching several consecutive attacks. However, those competitors managed to block the spear attacks. Who was there was Zeng, the substitute monitor, a level 19 guy. Shouting, he told his companions to follow the plan, and they got into battle positions. One of the students in the back used vine magic, and another was preparing a bow and arrow. The group realized that the arrow's target was exactly Kanan, who was meditating and gathering energy to perform another portal enchantment. So Luan ran to try to save him. Meanwhile, another competitor used the crescent slash technique. Our protagonist would be hit from behind, and Lang couldn't help him because he was trapped. Then Luan began preparing a spell in his hands. He managed to dodge the attack, but it was going straight to Kanan, so Luan launched an ice blade. At the last moment, Kanan managed to block the attack, but the other opponent was already on his back. Realizing everything was lost, Luan extended his hand and asked them to wait. Thus he gave up the fight. He realized they were at a disadvantage, since they were tired from having fought many matches. Therefore, it was better to give up. The teachers watched that on the screen and commented that it was good they lost, because otherwise the other students would be discouraged. Lucard, who was watching, was not happy at all and asked when it would be Lee with Ling's turn to fight. The teacher said they would be next. Lucard had a brilliant idea and told the teacher to announce on the screen that Luan should continue and fight the next battle. If they didn't do that, they would be eliminated from the tournament. The Gothic teacher complained that this was a dirty trick and against the rules, but the vice principal ordered it, and so it was announced on the screen. Luan, along with Dormitory 333's team, would continue in the simulator and face the next opponents. If they failed in this fight, they would be eliminated. All this to test the pupil, guys. 3 students were teleported into the simulator, and we saw Lee with Ling, who would be the next opponents. Kanan was already trembling with fear since he still couldn't use his summoning portal. And we reached the most awaited fight of the story, guys. This is because the little blonde had prepared a strategy to defeat Luan. So this fight promises. If you want me to bring part 3 soon, comment below, Elemental Girl. That way I'll know you really like this story, and I'll try to bring it as soon as possible. These works take a lot of effort to recap, guys. One way you can contribute is by leaving your like. I'll leave 2 works recommended that I'm sure you'll like. So we'll see you there. Other than that, that's it. Thanks and see you later, everyone.